Good afternoon, everyone. And may I say welcome to members of the viewing public to this special meeting of the council, full council being conducted remotely. Please can I ask Gillian Duckworth, the Director of Legal and Governance, to announce the housekeeping arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This meeting is a public meeting held in accordance with recent regulations which permit local authority meetings to be held by remote means. The meeting is being conducted using Zoom as the virtual platform and will be live streamed for public to view by the Council's Public Eye webcasting site. This will mean that the recording will also be available for people to view later through the Council's website. To help make the meeting run as smoothly as possible, it is important that all participants in the virtual meeting room have their microphone on mute for the duration of the meeting. Please only unmute when the Lord Mayor invites you to speak. This will help reduce the scope for noise interference. May I also suggest that all mobile phones and similar devices are switched to silent in order to remove the potential for disturbance when speaking at the meeting. Thank you in advance for your cooperation in this. May I remind members of the guidance provided to them on Monday by the clerk, Paul Robinson, that if you wish to speak at the meeting, you should use the Zoom chat facility to request to speak. You will need to indicate which item number you wish to speak on, and it is important that the message is sent to all panellists and not directly to the Lord Mayor. Paul will be monitoring the chat on the Lord Mayor's behalf, and messages sent directly to the Lord Mayor run the risk of being overlooked. Please do not use the chat facility for any other purpose. Again, thank you in advance for your cooperation. The regulations on remote meetings require that members are able to hear and be heard by, and where practicable, are able to see or be seen by other members and by members of the public. In the spirit of this, please can I ask that members keep their cameras on for the duration of the meeting. Members of the viewing public may see members of the council looking away from their screens at times. This is because they will need to look at an additional screen or device containing their agenda papers. May I remind members that in addition to the published agenda for the meeting, an email was sent to you earlier today by Paul Robinson attaching a document containing the 3 proposed amendments to be considered under item 8 on the agenda relating to the revenue budget and capital programme 2021-2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. I shall conclude these housekeeping announcements by stating that this meeting is scheduled to finish at 5:30 p.m. I propose to adjourn the meeting at one or more appropriate points through the proceedings to give members the opportunity to take a comfort break. Item 2, apologies for absence. We have no apologies for absence come in. Right. Item 3, declarations of interest or inability to vote on the meeting of the council tax charge. Members have been provided with advice on the position on declaring interest in relation to the setting of the council tax charge. With that advice in mind, does any member wish to declare an interest in the item on the revenue budget and capital programme 2021-22? Or declare an inability to vote on the setting of the council tax where they have council arrears of at least 2 months? If so, please unmute and speak. When declaring an interest, please state whether it is pecuniary or a personal interest and outline the reasons for the declaration. Does any member wish to declare an interest in any other item on the agenda? If so, please unmute and speak. Yes, okay. Item 4, public questions and petitions and other communications. May I remind members that recorded votes are to be held on the amendments and substantive motions on item 8, the revenue budget and capital programme 2021-22. These votes will be conducted by roll calls. Okay. Public questions can be asked and petitions can be presented at council meetings. Questions or petitions need to be submitted 2 clear days in advance of these remote meetings to allow time for myself and the chair, as the chair of the meeting, to decide how any petitions and questions received are to be presented at the meeting, and for invites to be sent, invitees to attend the meeting to be issued. There are 60 minutes allowed in total for ordinary petitions and public questions. For this meeting, 3 petitions and questions from 5 members of the public have been received by the submission deadline. At the appropriate time, the host of the meeting will bring speakers into the virtual meeting room to enable them to present their petition or ask their questions. Once a public speaker has spoken and received a response from the relevant cabinet member, the host will then return them to the virtual public gallery. In view of the number of petitions and questions received for this meeting, I expect that these are able to be dealt with within the 1-hour time limit. However, I am keen to ensure that as much time as possible is made available at this meeting for the elected members to debate the budget. Therefore, please may I request that petitioners be brief and keep within their time limit of 3 minutes. May I also request that cabinet members keep within their maximum time limit of 5 minutes when responding to the petitions. May I also ask that questioners be as brief as possible when asking their questions, and that cabinet members keep their responses short and succinct. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. Petitions. Petition requesting action to tackle parking problems on the road around Rother Valley. I have received a petition containing 241 signatures calling on Sheffield City Council to urgently tackle the dangerous parking on the road around Rother Valley Country Park, and to work with the Country Park and Rotherham Council to come up with a long-term solution for the problem. Anne Woolhouse wishes to address the council. Please can Anne be admitted to the virtual room? Right. Are you there, Anne?
I am, yes.
Right. Would you like to ask your question? Would you like to present your petition, please?
Yes, I'd like to present this petition. It's regarding the parking, as you've already said, at the Rother Valley Country Park, particularly the Southall area, where particularly on Meadowgate Drive, there's lots of poor parking. This is mainly due, or largely due, to the car park that is maintained by the Sheffield City Council, which is in poor condition, and mostly why a lot of people don't go down there to park. It is also too small for the purpose that it is used for. I've spoken to some of the residents who live in the area, and they're particularly concerned about the parking. Although they say it's exacerbated by the COVID, in the summer it is just as bad, if not worse, with people parking up on Meadowgate Drive. And they're particularly worried about the houses where the drives go straight onto the road, and the way the people park up there, they can't get clear visibility to come out onto the road, and they feel it will be an accident waiting to happen. I also spoke to a lady with a disabled daughter who has a wheelchair. She used to go down to the park quite regularly, but now feels that she can't because the cars also park onto the pavement, and she can't get the wheelchair down there, and she feels that it's too dangerous to push it onto the road. Also, where they park along adjacent to the car park on both sides, often there's only room for traffic to flow one way, and this is particularly worrying if there's a emergency vehicle needs to go down that road. So in view of the fact that the summer is coming and better weather, what is the City Council going to do about the car park and also the parking in this area? Thank you.
Thank you. It is recommended that the petition is referred to Councillor Julie Growcutt, Cabinet Member for Transport and Development. May I call upon Julie Growcutt to respond, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and good afternoon, Anne. Thank you for attending today's council meeting and presenting this petition. I can confirm that we will take action to tackle the dangerous parking on the roads around Rother Valley Country Park and to work with the Country Park and Rotherham Metropolitan Borough Council to come up with a long-term solution to the problem. We have already started discussions with RMBC. I have already met with local councillor Chris Roslin-Josephs, Clive Betts the MP, and some of the residents to listen and understand the issues they are facing. Following that, I have asked officers in the Strategic Transport and Infrastructure Service and Parking Services to coordinate with colleagues in the Parks, Countryside and Woodlands Service to propose a plan to tackle the issues. The plan will be cooperative with Rotherham Borough Council and who operate the Country Park and the adjoining Highways Authority. The ambition is to develop a joined-up, coherent, multidisciplinary plan to minimise the impact on local residents while improving the traffic management and options for short-term parking to visit Rother Valley Country Park. Officers are currently investigating the funding options available to deliver an effective plan. And the expectation is that the transport planning resource to develop and deliver the final plan is available to begin work on this project mid-spring. In the meantime, we will continue to work with the Safer Neighbourhoods policing team to tackle the dangerous parking prior to any changes that are to be introduced. I know the local councillor, Chris Roslin-Josephs, will be happy to provide updates to the community as this work gets underway. Thank you for raising the issue and allowing me to provide the update on what is planned in relation to this matter. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Please can Anne be returned to the public gallery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Petition requesting the council to reduce the waiting times for council house repairs in line with other regional local authorities. I have received a joint paper and electronic petition containing 876 signatures requesting the council to reduce waiting times for council house repairs in line with other regional local authorities. Sophie Thornton wishes to address the council. Please can Sophie be admitted to the virtual room? Right.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Sophie, you have 3 minutes to ask your question, please. Would you like to go on with that now? Thanks.
Councillors, take Ryan, who lives on Low Edges. He's been living without a shower for over 6 weeks. Take Kay's adult son, Sam, who has additional needs. He's been waiting 18 months for repairs to a serious leak. The stress has heightened his mental health conditions and he's finding it difficult to cope. Take Sally, who has had water from her toilet leaking into her home that she shares with her young son for over 2 years. Take Simon, living on Batemore. His house is freezing cold and his water bill is through the roof because of leaks. And not only has he been waiting for 6 months, but every time his repair is scheduled, he takes time off work for no one to arrive. And he hears nothing back. He feels fed up, frustrated, and let down. Take Natalie, who lives in a block of flats in Jordanthorpe. The communal porch roof flooded and it came through over a year ago. Chunks of plaster keep falling down. It took 10 months for it to be seen and it's still not fixed properly and it's still leaking today. When I met Natalie last year, I wasn't expecting this issue to be so widespread, but especially in recent weeks, this petition has taken off, especially in Low Edges, Jordanthorpe, Batemore, Parson Cross and Westfield. When all of these people and more, you only need to look at the comments on Sheffield Online, say the same thing, that the council's housing repair service is broken, it doesn't work for me, and I don't think they even care. How long can we keep saying that this isn't a problem? Councillors, whenever I've asked questions on council housing repairs, I've been told that the waiting times aren't that long, that I've been misinterpreting the statistics, and that it's not true. But the council's own statistics show an average wait of 57 days, but these people have been waiting months and years. Because for Kay's son Sam, for Simon, for Natalie, for Ryan, for Sally, and for many others, it is happening. This is their life, this is their home, and they want it fixed. And I'm sure they're not alone. There's nearly 900 people have signed this petition showing the widespread dissatisfaction with the council repairs service. It comes alongside a list of people I have spoken to with housing repairs issues. The longest wait on that list is someone who has been waiting 10 years. People I have spoken to have been seriously affected, not only by the stress and anxiety, but people like Connor, who have had physical conditions like asthma exacerbated by mold and damp. But it's not all bleak. This council can make amends to people who have been struggling. who don't feel like the council cares. We can admit the problem, we can make an apology and get them sorted. I'd like to know what the council is going to do to tackle this issue, and I hope that we can agree that council tenants across the city need our support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sophie. It's recommended that the petition is referred to Councillor Paul Wood, Cabinet Member for Neighbourhoods and Community Safety. May I call upon Councillor Wood to respond, please?
Thank you, Sophie, for the petition. And what you read out sounds like a horror story. And I would personally apologise to every tenant who has gone through the problems that you've just outlined in what you've said. I wouldn't like to pass comment on any of those individual cases without looking at them in detail. And I thank you for forwarding me all the addresses, and I promise you that will be looked at, and I will get a report on all of those cases and let you know what the outcome of those is. You raised about the 57 days to get a council repair. When I've spoken to you on this, that applies to only one sector of the 4 that we operate within the housing service. And prior to COVID, the average repair time in all the sectors was 15.09 days. That has risen over the last 12 months, which I've been able to get the figures yesterday, to 17.84 days. However, there are some that take considerably longer for a variety of reasons. Some tenants want us to fit their own orders for kitchens or bathrooms. Then we wait for stock to come in, and that takes obviously a lot longer than if they're buying from the recommended suppliers that the council would normally use to supply. Throughout the financial year of last year, there's been problems obviously with COVID, and we've had 2 of those big sectors of the repair service not operating. I'm pleased to say that hopefully tomorrow all of those areas will be turned back on. And to deliver that service that we want, what I've approved today is that we have additional capacity through our own workforce by offering those overtime who wish to do that, create additional capacity through recruiting new trade operatives and filling the vacancies that we have within the repair service. And we've started on that recruitment procedure now. We have 20 of our long-term apprentices become fully qualified in the next month. They will be deployed into the trades areas. We're also looking at increasing the work we do with our agency staff. And the big announcement really is we're going to open up to subcontractors who might be short of work through COVID, as long as they have the necessary health and safety and qualifications to take on some more subcontract work through the council. I will look at every case you've raised with me, and I will get back to you on them when I've looked at each individual one. On a hopeful note, I had a call from Connor to say he's pleased how we've sorted his problems out. And I had a call from the lady called Anita saying that she is happier than she's been in the last couple of years with what we've got done with her property. So the one thing I would say which I find very difficult to understand, in most areas where a tenant has a lot of problems, they go to their local councillor, who then brings it to me, and I get these things sorted. I've done this for Councillor Baker recently, Councillor Auckland, Councillor Turpin, councillors in my own party. There seems no involvement with the local councillors in this Low Edges area, because I have not had one councillor in Low Edges bring to me an issue about repairs. And I do think there is a job of work to do there, so that tenants know that don't only rely on the housing service, but they've got local representatives who can make representations to me. And I think you'll find a cross-party. Every time someone approaches me with a serious problem with repairs, I've taken it on and dealt with it straight away. So I would hope we could get a little bit more engagement there, not only in Low Edgeswood, but across the entire city, that our local councillors, in whichever party they are, pick up some of these things, and it's not left to get to what appears to be the scale it is today. But thank you for being in this. I will look at all those things you've raised, Sophie, and get back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Sophie. And can Sophie please be returned to the public gallery? Petition requesting road safety measures on Mortimer Road. I have received a joint paper, an electronic petition containing 375 signatures requesting road safety measures on Mortimer Road. Julie Firth wishes to address the council. Please can Julie be admitted to the virtual room? Okay, okay, Julie, you have 3 minutes to present your petition. Thank you. Is she there? Are you there, Julie? Are you muted?
Hello.
Hello, can hear you now. Can you present your petition? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Hi, my name's Julie Firth and I live and run an equestrian business on Mortimer Road in Middlestones, breaking and bringing on young horses. I also provide stabling for many more riders of all ages. Mortimer Road runs from the A616 Stockbridge bypass to the A57 into Derbyshire and Sheffield. It's an unclassified country lane, which in some places is single track. It crosses a series of very steep hills with hairpin bends and is a shortcut into Western Sheffield. The road is used by walkers, cyclists and horse riders, and since its resurfacing in 2014 for the Tour de France, has become even more popular. And as soon as the weather improves, the speeds get faster and some drivers and motorcyclists use it as a racetrack, exceeding the speed limit, oblivious to the sharp corners, steep drops and other road users, resulting in many accidents. There are a few signs to warn drivers of the dangers. A friend has stopped rebuilding her stone wall as cars regularly crash there and roll down their field, resulting in the need for emergency services. The road is unclassified and this is regarded as a 60 mile an hour speed limit by drivers. We would like to see the speed limit reduced to 50 mile an hour along the entire road beyond Middlestones. In the village of Middlestones, the speed limit drops to 30. We would like to see this sign move further up the hill so cars are approaching the houses at a more reasonable speed. We would also like to see more warning signs, crash barriers and speed cameras. We also would like early warning signs on the A616 and A57, alerting HGV drivers that this route is totally unsuitable, as wagons regularly get stuck below Garlic House Farm, resulting in the road being blocked until the vehicle is removed. We feel that if nothing is done soon, then there will be a fatality before too long. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Julie. It is recommended that the petition is referred to Councillor Julie Grocott, Cabinet Member for Transport and Development. May I call upon Councillor Grocott to respond, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and good afternoon, Julie. Thank you for presenting this petition. Hiya. Thank you for presenting this petition at Council today. You and other residents have been campaigning in relation to these road safety measures for some time. As you know, I've previously met with local people to listen to concerns firsthand and to look at what can be done to resolve the issues you've highlighted in your petition. I'm also aware that you have been receiving support from Councillor Francine Johnson. As I'm sure you will appreciate, the Council receives a number of requests for road safety measures from local residents and others, covering the whole of the city. Ideally, we would like to be able to respond to most of them, but in practice, there are clear limitations upon our resources. This means that we have to assess and prioritise locations for road safety measures, using a supporting evidence base and justification. We currently only have enough local transport plan funding for around 3 large road safety schemes a year, and these are based on treating locations with recurring accident records. This approach is supported by the Sheffield City region and the Safer Roads Partnership. In relation to Mortimer Road, as you know, it is almost 10 miles long from its junction with the A616 to the A57. We've investigated our records and it shows that there have been 15 road injury collisions along this 10-mile length in the last 5 years. Unfortunately, there are many other areas in the city with higher collision rates that must be treated as a priority with the funding that is available for collision reduction schemes from the local transport plan budget. However, we have made some minor improvements in recent times. I am aware that a new bend warning sign was installed on Mortimer Road earlier this year. The new sign is located on the first bend after Sugworth Road when driving north from the A57. Maintenance work has also recently been carried out on some sections of Mortimer Road to clear overgrowing foliage and repair bend marking posts. The South Yorkshire Camera Partnership are responsible for deciding on locations for safety cameras as they assess the locations of community concern for their mobile camera enforcement. The council can refer sites to them or you can contact them directly yourself. I will arrange for the council officers to pass details on of your petition. Thank you for taking the time to attend the council meeting to raise these concerns and campaigning to make your local roads safer. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grocott, and thank you, Julie, for bringing the petition this afternoon.
Thank you
Please
very
can
much.
Julie be returned to the public gallery. Thank you. We now move to public questions. May I remind questioners of my earlier statement requesting that questioners be as brief as possible when asking their questions and that cabinet members keep their responses short and succinct in order that as much time as possible is available for the budget item later on. Thank you. Can I call upon Katie Murray, please? Oh, can Katie be? Yeah, okay. Is she
Hi there. Sorry, I'm
Okay.
here.
Okay, can you ask a question, please? Your question.
Yeah, I'm asking this question on behalf of Acorn Sheffield, who I represent. So, since 2016, Acorn has been campaigning for citywide landlord licensing to ban the worst landlords from running in our city. Since then, our union's been growing ever stronger. As we speak, we're fighting on more and more cases against road landlords than ever before. After putting a call out to our members for a matter of days, we brought together 50 of countless stories in Sheffield that bad landlords have to deliver to the town hall on Saturday, the 20th of February. We believe that this is a crisis that demands urgent action. We've seen landlords refusing to repair homes overrun with mould, stealing deposits, serving revenge evictions. So we're asking now that the council commit to introducing citywide landlord licensing. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Katie. And can I call? May I call upon Councillor Paul Wood, Cabinet Member for Neighbourhoods and Community Safety, to respond, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. It's a very important question and request you make, and the council takes private rented sector landlords and the quality of the housing very, very seriously. We're committed to ensuring the highest standards across the city, not only in the private sector, but also in the public sector as well for tenants. And to this end, we've introduced recently a council accredited landlord scheme, of which a number of landlords have signed up to, which gives us the nomination rights for tenants, and we inspect the properties and we look after those properties over a 12-month period. We intend to extend that. You will see in the budget later this afternoon the largest investment for 10 years in the private rented sector team and the enforcement and environmental teams. We accept that this has been understaffed for a number of years, and that will be put right in this afternoon's budget announcements. We are committed to looking at what we can do on selective licensing. There are lots of issues about bringing in a citywide scheme, but we set up a few weeks ago a working group to look at this through my portfolio, and they will be reporting back later this year. What we'll need to look at is both the financial and resource implications and the areas that this is most needed in. When that report is brought back later in the year, I'm sure there'll be a great deal of discussion about it, and then we'll decide on where we move next with those steps. But be assured that what within the powers and the finances we have at the moment, we are increasing the monitoring of the private rented sector, and we continue to do that and work towards getting what you are looking for. One thing I would say to you is every time you receive a report, forward it straight through to me. I will make sure it goes to the right team and action is taken. So anything you do receive through your organisation, just make sure it is forwarded for either myself or for one of your local councillors to me, and we will certainly take action on any case that you bring and look into it for you on your behalf.
Does that include the council?
It
Thank you.
includes everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Wood, and thank you, Katie, for your question. Please can Katie be returned to the public gallery. Catherine Flannery and Dean Bergin have got similar questions, and neither can be here at the council today. I've asked that Dean's question will be answered in writing, but Fliss Callow is going to ask the question on behalf of Catherine Flannery. Please can Fliss Callow be admitted to the virtual room? There? Yeah, okay. Fliss, you have 3 minutes to ask your question, please. Sorry. Are you there? Are you there, Catherine? You need to unmute, Catherine. Fliss. I'm getting the names wrong. And I do apologise. You don't have 3 minutes. It's me that's made that mistake. Okay. Are you there, Fliss?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Hello. Yes, yeah, we can hear you, Fliss. Carry on, love, please.
Sorry, yeah. I'm here on behalf of the Orgreave Truth and Justice campaign. It's regarding the job losses, the proposed job losses at Rolls-Royce Advanced Manufacturing Park. I'm reading a letter that was sent to councillors Johnson and Iqbal regarding this. And it's particularly important today on budget day that, you know, this city doesn't lose any more jobs on top of the ones that have already been lost. I'll just read from it, so I'm not taking too long, actually, so I won't read the whole thing. But part of it says, we were extremely heartened, as you were, when the old and derelict Orgreave coking plant site was eventually going to be used for the benefit of communities, providing local jobs and regenerating the area. And our campaign is most concerned to see these proposed job losses. The legacy of the 84-85 miner strike, with huge job losses in this area, not just in the coal mining industry, but job losses as a result of the ripple down effect through the labour market, which obviously had a devastating, heartbreaking and long-lasting effect on many people's lives. So the Advanced Manufacturing Park brought back some highly skilled jobs and some regeneration, one of the companies being Rolls-Royce. The Orgreave campaign stands shoulder to shoulder with Unite the Union, who have been negotiating with Rolls-Royce to stop these job losses. And as trade unionists, we ask the Leader of the Council and the Cabinet Member for Business Involvement the following questions. Does the Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member oppose these job losses, particularly given today the budget decisions you'll be making about the economic well-being of the city? If so, has the Council expressed their concern to Rolls-Royce already? If not, will the Leader of the Council and Cabinet Member contact Rolls-Royce to do so? will the leader and Sheffield group leader publicly condemn these job losses? Will the leader and Sheffield Labour group publicly express support for Unite the Union's campaign against the job losses? So we'd like to receive a written response as well as the oral response that you'll give today. So thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you, Fliss. May I call upon Councillor Mazhar Iqbal, Cabinet Member for Business and Investment, and perhaps Councillor Johnson, Leader of the Council, to respond, please. Councillor Iqbal.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor, and hiya, Fliss. Thanks ever so much.
Councillor Iqbal.
Sorry? Can you hear me, Lord Mayor?
Carry on.
Yeah, sorry, I'll start again. Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me in, Lord Mayor. Hiya, Fliss. Thank you ever so much for putting the questions to myself and the leader. I did speak to one of your colleagues yesterday afternoon from the union. I did say to her, as you said in your opening remarks, Fliss, it's been a challenging and an awful 12 months. It's not just the unfortunate redundancies that are happening at the AMRC, but as we've seen across Sheffield and across the country, well, globally, the impact this pandemic has had. And I welcome the Prime Minister's roadmap to reopen the businesses across the country. Regarding the redundancies specifically to Rolls-Royce, as I say, you know, within our budget this afternoon and many other councils this afternoon are approving their budgets due to lack of funding from government. And you'll be aware, Fliss, of the austerity that has been continued now for this is our 11th year. I think it's about £500 million that's been taken out of the council's budget, and the deputy leader will definitely be making a statement on the budget later. But it's not just Rolls-Royce up at the AMRC. Unfortunately, we've also heard about the redundancies that have taken place by the University of Sheffield. And as I said to your colleague yesterday, it's heartbreaking to see any redundancies taking place. I'm more than happy to speak to Rolls-Royce. I can't make any commitments because the council has very, very little influence, because as you're aware, Fliss, these job losses that Rolls-Royce have announced are not just here in Sheffield, but also across the country, and they've taken that decision globally. Happy to meet with you and your colleague, as I said to your colleague yesterday, to Chris Pearce. Happy to meet with you and discuss what support we can provide. I can't condemn the job losses. If they were sacking people, Fliss, then yes, I'd be up there putting my point of view across. But because of the position that they're taking on redundancies, it's very difficult for me to say that I condemn them, because unfortunately, due to government cuts, this council is making redundancies this afternoon. So the commitment I can give this afternoon, Fliss, is to meet up with you and your colleagues and look at what support we can provide to those people that are facing redundancies. I'd also like to hear from Rolls-Royce what support that the council can provide, but that's the only commitment I can give today, Fliss, through you, Lord Mayor. I hope that answers the questions you raised. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, did you want to add anything?
I think Councillor Iqbal probably quite eloquently covered everything there. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Fair enough, thank you. And thank you, Councillor Iqbal. And thank you very much, Fliss, for bringing your question today. Please can Fliss be returned to the public gallery. Rebecca Atkinson has 4 questions on bins in parks and public spaces. Please can Rebecca Atkinson be admitted to the virtual meeting room? Okay, Rebecca, are you there?
Yeah.
Please ask your questions. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So I have a few questions to council. The COVID-19 pandemic has been a catalyst for many more people out walking, running and cycling, enjoying Sheffield's parks and public spaces. Our city's parks and trails have been a sanctuary during these difficult times, and the enjoyment of the outdoors can and should be encouraged going forward. So what plans are there in place going forward to further connect and promote our green spaces so that we can celebrate Sheffield as the outdoor city for residents and for visitors? So that was number 1. Number 2, a number of extra bins have been promised for the Bold Hills several weeks ago now, but they haven't materialised. When will they arrive, please? Number 3, bins in parks across the city were full and overflowing last weekend. And that was, of course, because of the good weather, but also because people have discovered the outdoors and they're enjoying this. And I don't think it's a trend that's going to reverse anytime soon. So in the northwest of the city, residents complained about littering due to bin shortages in Riverland Valley, Crooks Valley Park and the Bold Hills. So what has the council done to increase bin capacity in our parks and public spaces in Sheffield over the past year? And question number 4, a lot of the material being put into the bins this weekend consisted of things like cardboard and aluminium cans and glass bottles, and these are really valuable resources, valuable material that are widely recycled, easily recycled materials. And so over the weekend, I'm like many of the volunteers, we were out litter picking, and I did a lot of clearing up on the Bold Hills. A lot of people that were out enjoying themselves had left things like cans and glass bottles around the outside of the bins, and they were trying to do the right thing. It wasn't really their fault because there wasn't enough bin capacity. So when I was out litter picking, I was speaking to residents, and what they really want is more bins, a few more bins and more regular collections of bins. And also a number of people mentioned they would really like segregated bins for recycling in the parks, as I said, for things like paper and cans and bottles. So from my perspective, it's the council's job to make it easy for people to do the right thing. And I think with just a few more things in place, like I said, more bins and more frequent collection of rubbish in bins, it can make a massive difference to people and keep our parks clean and tidy. So that's it.
Thank you, Rebecca. And may I say, before I ask for a response, how proud I am of the enormous amount of people, volunteers, who go out litter picking every day to try and help to keep our city clean and tidy. May I call upon Councillor Mary Lee, Cabinet Member for Culture, Parks and Sport and Leisure, to respond, please.
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Rebecca, for bringing your questions today. Very, very important questions. And question 1, I absolutely agree with you. This the pandemic has been a really blow for across the country and a blow for Sheffield, but our parks have absolutely been the lifeline people have needed during the pandemic, for the whole of the year. Obviously in the summer, when restrictions were lifted, we had a massively heavy use of our parks, and particularly Endcliffe Park, Potter Valley, they were massively used, and quite rightly so. But it did put a lot of pressure on us, and at that particular time. But they are what you brought today. The question you brought today about green spaces and priorities across and the connectivity, really important. What we are doing, we have a proposal called Better Parks project, and that aims to raise income for parks, but also to bring more facilities into parks, such as cafes. We know that if people want to visit a park, they much appreciate a place to buy a cup of coffee, go to the toilet and so on. But it's not just, but it's about bringing cafes in, but also other facilities in parks as well. that people will enjoy, and that work has continued during the pandemic. Over the last 2-3 years, we've put an extra £400,000 a year of public health funding into our parks. I think we're in the 4th year now, and that will continue for another 2 years. So that has meant we've been able to put a lot of play facilities in parks across the city, but mainly in areas where health has been poorest. And that has been, we've done that with the use of some 106 monies that were attached to those parks as well. So that development has continued. We've obviously helped people apply for grants, and that has gone into our parks. And as you know, you may know, the General Cemetery has been recipient of a massive lottery grant to improve and regenerate that particular part of that park in the city, and is, you know, it is a heritage site for Sheffield, and a hidden gem sometimes, I think, for us in our city. In terms of the plans and the developments in parks that were there at the start of the pandemic, those have continued. We've done as much as possible online, but those developments have continued and coming to fruition now. So we have done a lot, and there's more to be planned. The Lord Mayor has mentioned litter pickers, and I would just want to mention our friends of our parks, because without them, you know, we would have a lot more work to do and find a lot more pressure on our park service. And we work very, very closely with them. They bring in income, but they do such a lot. And you sound as though you might be a friend of Bowl Hills Park and other parks in the city, I'm not sure, but we do work closely with those friends groups, and we do as much as we can to assist them, and they are, you know, really vital to the city. This summer, we are proposing and bringing into a series of active holidays. It's called a proposal called Active Holidays, where we'll be using not just our parks, other facilities as well, but a lot of the activity will take part in our parks, and that is to bring activities to children, food, lunches, and so on. And we'll be developing that over the next months and introduce that during the summer holidays. So that we're hopeful that people just visit the parks, obviously through the summer, but also we'll have a particular emphasis on children and young children in particular to enjoy our parks and be active and have things for them to do, not just playgrounds, but also active things for them to do. That will be brought out in the summer months as well. In question 2, you mentioned the bins at Bowl Hill. I think there's been some pressures regarding the bins being delivered, and hopefully there will be, they've not arrived yet, but they will arrive imminently, I'm told, and we will ensure that they get installed in the park as soon as possible. Question 3 was about bins were full during an overflowing on that weekend, and you mentioned quite rightly, it was really the first spring day we'd had, and lots of people went out in parks across the city, so there was a lot of litter left in those parks. But during this last 12 months and ongoing over the next year as well, we did see lots of big increase in visitor numbers in the parks during last year, and that required a significant amount of management alongside our standard health and safety work. Regular maintenance and the necessity to maintain a COVID-safe working environment for our staff. We therefore implemented different litter options in different parks across the city, often working with our partners to respond to the changing needs. Over the last year, we installed 20 additional permanent litter bins, and they were fitted, with a further 10 bins planned for the west of the city. And 15 large temporary bins were also added. Additional weekend staffing was put in place to increase litter collections, and in recognition of the potential and likely use of our green spaces throughout the summer of 2021, a further additional number of temporary staff have been recruited over the summer months to allow us to respond to the increased demand. We've also prioritised other duties such as toilet and equipment cleaning. Take Your Litter Home campaign was also introduced last summer, with a new campaign planned for this spring. Further measures are planned for the summer, building on the changes we introduced last year, including adding large capacity Euro bins to those parks where access is possible. And that's not possible in all our parks, but where it is possible, we'll install those, bearing in mind health and safety issues. So that work that we started last year, the extra resources we put in, will continue this spring and this summer. And your last question was about what gets put in our bins and whether we're going to introduce ways of recycling the litter that's put in bins. Well, first of all, we'd like people to take the litter on because that's the best thing to do and helps us all. But we will look at what we can do in terms of increasing the recycling in our parks over the coming months, because as you say, demand restrictions will still be in place for a good while, and we need to ensure that we have good facilities there. They're not there yet, but we'll certainly be having those discussions to see about what we can do to increase the recycling facilities in parks, and I'll be liaising with my colleagues on that issue. We're also introducing a project called Cleaner, Greener, Safer, and that will be in 4 areas of the city. We're running a pilot now to look at what people think and what they need, and that includes our parks, and certainly will include recycling and other facilities that will aid that, and also keep our parks clean as well as other areas of the city. So that is introduced in some pilot areas across the city, and the results of that work will then be transferred to other areas as well.
Thank you, Councillor Lee, and thank you, Rebecca, for bringing your question. Please, can Rebecca be returned to the public gallery? Thank you. Please, can Ruth Hubbard be admitted to the virtual meeting room, please? Okay. Are you there, Ruth?
I am. Can you hear me?
You'd like to ask your questions then, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Lord Mayor. Good afternoon, Council. I hope everybody's well. I have 3 questions. The first one's about our referendum. Here in Sheffield, the current ruling administration has one of the smallest electoral mandates of any council in the country, where under its own strong leader governance, over 90% of citizens have no rights to representation via their local councillors in almost all decision-making. And that's why citizens and communities working together have secured the right to decide the way this council works. Councils of all political persuasions operate under committee governance. The latest council changing to committee governance is Labour-led Cheshire East, who are currently piloting their new committee system. Labour-led Newham also have a change of governance referendum by choice on the 6th of May. I was one of the speakers at the launch of their committee campaign, in their case almost wholly led by progressive Labour supporters and activists. In Sheffield, local Labour branches and constituency Labour parties have passed motions to get rid of strong leader governance, and Labour supporters in the city widely support change and have been part of the community campaign. Although driven by the majority linked to any party, is the new leader aware of the widespread local and national Labour support for change, along with other political party support for getting rid of undemocratic, top-down, strong leader governance? Question 2, it's about action following November full council and trying to get an answer to my question in January. In January, I asked about the incident in November full council when a member of the public presenting a petition was, in my view, humiliated and bullied in response. And I asked what action, if any, was taken, including by the monitoring officer following that meeting. In response to my question, I was told about the political opportunism of the Lib Dems, but no answer to my question. Likewise, another member of the public, I think in Cabinet, in pointing out the contradictions in the treatment of petitioners and asking for a clear protocol, was told his question would be treated as a statement, not a question. So to return to the question, am I to assume that no action was taken by anyone following full council in November, and that no protocol in the treatment of petitioners will be agreed? And my third question is about youth services. In September, I asked about youth services being brought in-house, and I received full but very general answers. And clearly the priority at that time was managing the transfer. And I also asked my question in the context of massive youth service cuts from central government in the last 10 years. Firstly, can you please tell me how many managers and workers employed by the new service are JNC recognised professional youth workers? And I noticed that the advert for a new head of youth service doesn't seem to require applicants to hold this basic professional qualification. Secondly, Sheffield Futures was run by a multi-agency board, and in bringing services in-house, how have the benefits of that been built in and or replicated? And thirdly, what are the mechanisms through which community-led youth provision can be part of actively shaping and contributing to a better city youth work strategy and in the delivery of youth services? Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. May I call upon Councillor Terry Fox, Cabinet Member for Finance, Resources and Governance, to answer the first question, then Councillor Bob Johnson, the Leader of the Council, to answer the second question, and then Councillor Abdisan Mohammed, Cabinet Member for Education and Skills, to answer the final question. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Ruth, for your question. I've said on many public times and appearances that, you know, I think the work that our city have done is to be commended, but I do think that at best some of the comments you're putting out are naive, and I say that as deputy leader, and I know I say it on behalf of the leader, that I am proud as this deputy leader of this council of the 84 councillors that sit in this chamber who democratically, forcefully and passionately represent all residents of this city, whether they voted for them or not. They sit on committees day in, day out, grinding decisions out that are the glue that hold this council together. I know for a fact the work that goes in on the planning board, hours and hours they put in to make those decisions. On licensing, where they have to deal with members of the public trying to put over the best decisions they possibly can. Sitting on environment, on safer, on children's, on healthier committees, on overview scrutiny committees, day in, day out, fighting and scrutinising the work of my 10 cabinet colleagues. The audit commission that sits and holds us to standards, the way that they roll up their sleeves, put a full shift in. I am proud of the way all 84 councillors turn up, do their shift, make those decisions on the best of this city. And I can only say that if we are going to put information out, let's put out the information that is correct. And I want to personally thank and take the opportunity on today, Budget Council of all, is to thank all councillors for all the work they do. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Bob Johnson, Leader.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. If the monitoring officers received any complaints about the conduct of any member, particularly around that November council, they would have been considered in line with the council's procedures. Standards and matters are a responsibility of the council's Audit and Standards Committee working with the monitoring officer. This process is totally independent of me and my cabinet members, and so it should be. Regarding protocol, however, we are happy to see if there is a protocol that is feasible, and I will discuss this with officers and other political groups. Thank you for your question, Ruth.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Abdisan Mohammed.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Hi, Ruth. I hope you're well. So in relation to the specific questions, I've got some specific answers. The first one about qualifications, we've got 4 managers and 14 workers with the recognised qualifications that you've referred to. In terms of multi-agency working, it's happening in a different way at the moment, because I recognise Sheffield Futures did have a board of multi-agency working. That's happening more on a localised level at present. So they are working with local professionals locally. However, in the way forward, sort of when we put out the strategy, which I'll go on to in the final question that you've raised, we are looking to have a multi-agency board established going forward after the consultation has gone out. And that comes on to the final question. So in relation to the mechanisms of how people can actively get involved, we really want community groups and individuals to get as actively involved as possible. So we'll be putting out a consultation at the end of this month, and that's to help shape the future design of youth services. If you know of any group that doesn't hear about the dates of the workshops or anything that's going to happen specifically going forward, please let me know, and we'll make sure that they are sent the details. we want communities to help shape and design how youth work should look locally, because for every area in Sheffield, I think one of the things that we recognise is it's very different. So you can't have a strategy that's a one size fits all for the whole of Sheffield. Different areas have got different needs, and so we want to make sure that communities are involved in shaping what happens for young people locally. And at that point, once the consultation comes back, we'll then be looking to establish a youth board across the city that will just be involving all the multi-agency stakeholders. So I hope that answers your questions. But if, like I said, you don't hear anything about the consultation, please do get in touch personally. Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to the responders, and thank you, Ruth, for bringing your questions this afternoon. Thank you very much. That concludes this. Oh, please can Ruth be returned to the public gallery. That concludes this item of business. We're now on to item 5, members' questions. Questions on urgent business. There are no questions on urgent business received from any member of the council, so I shall move straight on to. I was going to move straight on to item 6, but there's some 1 or 2 bits of preparatory work has to be done, and I'm going to move that to the end of the meeting. So now I'm going to move to item 7, proper officer designation related to the function of returning officer and updated leaders scheme of delegation. This item of business is to approve the recommendation in the report of the Director of Legal and Governance, which was published with the agenda for this meeting. The recommendations are to adopt the changes to the management structure and statutory / proper officers section of the Constitution to transfer the functions of the returning officer for local and parliamentary elections from the Director of Policy, Performance and Communications to the Chief Executive, and to note the approval of an updated leaders scheme of delegation of executive functions and the leaders' notice to appointment of executive members. There are no proposed amendments for council to consider. The motion to approve the recommendation is to be moved by Councillor Bob Johnson and seconded by Councillor Terry Fox. If any other member wishes to speak, may I remind them that they need to request to do so via the Zoom chat facility, sending their messages to all panellists. Councillor Johnson.
Formally moved, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Fox.
Only seconded, Lord Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak? Okay. I'm now going to move to the vote on the motion to approve the recommendations to redesignate the function of the returning officer for local and parliamentary elections and to note the updated leader scheme of delegation. Turn my page. Is the motion agreed? I would take silence as the affirmation of the meeting, but if any member wishes to dissent, please unmute and speak. That motion is carried. I'm now going to adjourn for a comfort break until 3:15, please. If you all be back here for 3:15, thank you. Oh, just before you go, which one is it? Oh yeah, just before you go, guys, for today's meeting, the method being used to live stream the meeting directly from Zoom rather than via the webcasting equipment in the council chamber does mean that we will be unable to pause the live stream. For the benefit of the viewing public, we will display a notice on the live stream indicating that the meeting has been temporarily adjourned and giving the time that the meeting will reconvene. However, it will mean that if any member unmutes and speaks during the adjournment, this will be heard by the public. If there is a need to communicate privately during the period of the adjournment, then use the Zoom chat facility would be an option. Thank you. You may now go.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've opened conservatory door and she's laid outside. So I'm bloody freezing now.
We can hear you, Andy. We can hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Andy Bainbridge, named and ashamed.
Start again. Welcome back, everyone. We're now on to item 8, Revenue, Budget and Capital Programme 2021/22. Firstly, we shall deal with the procedural matter as regards this item of business, and in accordance with Council Procedure Rules 4 and 11, a motion is to be moved to suspend Council Procedure Rule 17.5 to remove the 2-minute time limit on the speeches of the movers and seconders of amendments, and to set a new time limit whereby a total of 20 minutes will be shared by the mover and the seconder of each amendment, and all other speakers shall have 2 minutes. B, suspend Council Procedure Rule 17.6 to remove the 25-minute time limit for this item of business. And C, suspend Council Procedure Rule 17.7D and 17.12 A to remove the right of reply for the mover of the motion. Is that motion moved?
Formally moved, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Is that motion seconded?
Formally moved,
Second,
Mayor.
Lord Mayor.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
sir.
Thank you, Councillor Auckland. Thank you. All agreed. I will take silence affirmation of the meeting. If any member wishes to dissent, please unmute and speak. Okay. We now move to the main business of this item, which is to approve a revenue budget and capital programme and set the council tax for the financial year 2021-22. There is a motion to approve the recommendations made by the Cabinet, and there are 3 proposed amendments to consider. A document setting out the 3 amendments was circulated by email to all members earlier today and has been published on the website with the agenda for this meeting. The motion to approve the recommendations made by the Cabinet at its meeting held on the 17th of February 2021 is to be moved by Councillor Tony Dams, seconded by Councillor Diane Hurst. The mover and seconder of each amendment will then speak, and if any other member wishes to speak, may I remind them that they need to request to do so via the Zoom chat facility, sending their message to all panelists. May I call upon Councillor Dams to move the motion?
Formally moved, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. May I call upon Councillor Hurst to second the motion?
Formally seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. There are 3 proposed amendments, and these are numbers 1 to 3 on the list of amendments circulated by email prior to the meeting. May I call upon Councillor Terry Fox to move the amendment number 1. You and your seconder may speak for up to a combined total of 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. First of all, I would like to thank my predecessors and officers who've had to deal with the demands of austerity and this pandemic, and also the hardest job was putting up with me to try and get a continually balanced budget against the Cabinet report that showed that COVID is now a projected cost onto this council of £75 million. I have to say before the start, Lord Mayor, that obviously part of the Chancellor's ongoing budget announcements may affect some of these, but also we welcome the investment into Stocksbridge of the £24.1 million that has been agreed today. Lord Mayor, this is a budget for investing in our city and our communities, and is shaped by our residents. This has been done due to the prudent way and the really hard decisions that has been took over the years by this Labour administration. we've had to back our largest response of our budget engagement. We've been out to businesses, community organisations, plus also our residents, and as such delivered a checks and balances on our proposals to increase council tax by 1.99% and the social care precept of 3%, which on average is about 15p a day on a Band A property. Lord Mayor, the last 12 months have been some of the most challenging in Britain's recent peacetime history. The COVID pandemic has dominated every aspect of people's day-to-day lives, has caused huge disruption, economic turmoil, and very sadly, as we all know, many deaths and serious illnesses. Against this backdrop, the council has had to maintain its critical services for the citizens of Sheffield. I would also like to thank our wonderful staff, all of which I can't personally name today, who have took thousands of calls, who have delivered a lifeline, such as looking after older people, safeguarding vulnerable children, maintaining our streets, pavements and verges, providing the service which we've all depended on lockdown, such as waste collection, the parks and the environmental health services. In addition, there has been the pandemic-related pressures of providing the additional support of PPE to the care sector, helping schools to remain open, administering the large numbers of COVID support schemes to businesses and residents, such as the 22,000 free school meals during holidays, and support for the businesses closed by this pandemic by delivering over £100 million in grants to over 47,000 businesses, of which my own ward has had 3 million gone to over 350 small businesses. Lord Mayor, short-term central government financial support for these activities has been welcomed, and it allows us to produce a balanced budget for 21-22 without using the reserves or making unplanned cuts to services. However, the impacts of the pandemic on people's livelihoods, businesses, the care sector and on families, and the additional support that they will need continuing into the future, we will continue to lobby central government for certainty over our medium-term funding that recognises the vital role that this council plays in looking after the citizens of Sheffield and helping the city to recover from the pandemic. Lord Mayor, in response to the medium-term financial position, this Labour administration continues to push forward with a programme to transform its services. We are putting citizens at the heart of these services, supporting them to engage, to enable and empowering them to hold us and our partners to account by developing the local area committees. We've committed an additional £500,000 and the information will be released shortly by the leader. Lord Mayor, so we can build back better, learn lessons from how we will all adapted by the pandemic to making better use of technology for our citizens so we can provide a more accessible way and close the digital divide gap that has been highlighted by this horrendous pandemic. This and that is why we have now set our partners and ourselves a challenge to enable all our citizens to have the opportunity to a free access service to the internet wherever you live. This Labour administration engaged with organisations across the city in January to address the digital divide, to discuss the three main issues: the kit, connectivity and skills. This has already been started by the £1.5 million for Laptop for Kids project and the rollout of 6,000 laptops, plus our extra investment in the youth of over £2 million. And I'm sure Councillor Mohammed will have something to say on how we're going to roll that out. Lord Mayor, a citywide task force has now been set up and will have its first meeting tomorrow, which has been developed from the Digital Summit, which I've just explained was held earlier this year. This is only the one piece of a jigsaw to address the massive inequalities across this city. And we hope to announce other initiatives in the future by empowering our residents to affect where they live, where they work and where they play in their communities. That's why we're putting extra money into the community safety team of over £1 million. I'm sure Councillor Wood will explain shortly how that is going to be deployed, describing how the rollout of getting more people onto our streets to engage with our communities. We will roll out our community safety wardens and bring back safer neighbourhood officers. This coming on the back of delivering the biggest social house building programme in the country and delivering some of the biggest infrastructure projects the city's seen, and the 6.1 million on transport. I'm sure Councillor Grocott will be able to expand more on where this will lead us. Lord Mayor, now focusing on preventing family breakdown, on the ill health, and in enabling vulnerable people to live safely in their homes wherever possible. In doing all of this, we continue to work closely with our partner organisations across the city, and in particular, the NHS. Our social care heroes will provide the work in the sector and the many services which are preventative in nature, help people to live independently and safely in the community, and to leave hospital in a timely manner. The rising cost of social care from our elderly people as our population ages remains. It's not being addressed today. We urge, this is now a national issue that urgently needs addressing. It's accepted by most commentators that the current model for adult social care is unsustainable. However, despite various reviews over the past 20 years, to date no solution has emerged from central government, and one is urgently required. This lack of funding puts additional operational and financial pressures on the council and its partners. Over the last 4 years, this council, this administration, has provided those vital services with above inflation funding increases, and this year is no different, a 14% increase for 21-22, and that on back of an average over the last 4 years has seen the budget for adults, children's social services and our most vulnerable by a total of £88 million. Lord Mayor, with the Tory government's appetite to put pressure on local taxation for local government, which if you're in the Tory shires, where all their houses are in the higher band of D, E and F, will get the maximum cash. But cities like Sheffield, where we only have around 13% of properties in DAF, but the rest are an A and B band. But this council is still required by statute to set a balanced budget. There are a number of stages involved in formulating a balanced budget. These include the assessments of the likely increases or reductions to income sources, such as central government grants, council tax and business rates. This Labour administration recognises that most of that funding for these increases have been raised from our committed local businesses and on the back of our hard-working and struggling council taxpayers, and it remains committed to supporting those who are struggling to pay. That's why we're announcing today, those on council tax support will not have to pick up the extra increase. We're putting an extra £500,000 in to protect those who need us at this time. However, to protect the services upon which citizens of Sheffield rely, it is vital that everyone who can pay does so. Lord Mayor, we are now showing our support for the heroes who work in the care sector by committing a £4.2 million to show the direction of travel to move them onto the foundation living wage. We're also putting in £2.5 million into the children's services, which will include the review of payments to carers and children's mental health. And I'm sure Councillors Linders Hammond and Councillor Drayton will say more on this if they get the chance. Key to our activities over the coming years will be helping Sheffield to recover to the effects of the pandemic and the careful financial management in recent years, which means that we are starting from a position of relative financial security. We want to make Sheffield a great place for everyone to live, to work and to play, building on the spirit of our citizens and the great many amenities within Sheffield and the city and its beautiful surrounding countryside. Lord Mayor, during this pandemic, we have still been able to deliver on our pledges to our green and open spaces. We've improved the Parsons Cross skate park. We've improved the path network through Ettlesall Woods. We've put the play area in Oxley Park. Millhouses has installed a multiplayer unit. Arborthorne Pond has been done and its access. Philadelphia Gardens. Colliery Park improvements, the play area for small children, Pond Rosa Active Play Park, and we're also now working with Norton Wood Seats Pavilion and also, as you know, Lord Mayor, the Westfield Playground. I'm sure Councillor Lee will be able to expand on these and the future of the £55.5 million initiatives for the Cleaner, Greener, Safer programme. We are also investing again in this year's budget and was announced yesterday by Councillor Iqbal the exciting project of providing a city centre pocket park with an investment of over £5.5 million. This just goes to prove that if you vote Labour, you get the investments in your local parks and your green and open spaces. Lord Mayor, a balanced budget for 21-22 is recommended to the Council. With sufficient reserves now being retained, we will use these reserves carefully to protect essential services in the short term, and if further central government funding cuts occur after 21-22, and we will support the COVID-related growth and recovery activity as far as we're able. We will urge, along with our core city and partners and central government, to commit to sustainable funding for long-term government for the medium term, maintaining our key services. This Labour administration remains committed to providing the best possible services to Sheffield and its people, whilst maintaining a medium-term financial sustainable position. As we now build back better, we give wealth to our communities to assist the regeneration of our neighbourhoods. This will be underpinned by the council working in our localities, thus increasing sustainability within our commitment to invest in an extra £1 million on top of the £2 million already committed to our district centres. We're also investing, as it's been announced, the High Street by delivering the £5 million to deliver the £20 million investment. This is putting our money where our mouth is, and I'm sure Councillor Iqbal will highlight our plan. Lord Mayor, when we say we're going to engage, when we enable and we empower, we will do this to our communities through our community wealth building programme, which will include our successful ethical procurement policy, which has already delivered £80+ million in social value, an investment in Sheffield and raising our ambitions. And I'm sure Councillor Jones will be bringing policies through that will validate this. Lord Mayor, our sustainable, not only now, but in the future, our plan and the vision is spelt out in our £160 million sustainable investment over the next 5 years. Our Greater Green Scheme, £1 million to open up the Castlegate, £9.25 million for the Upper Don Valley water management, protecting the public transport routes, £5.8 million on the transport, renewing our transport fleet, the £1.2 million on rapid charging points around the city, £1 million spent on the electric van scheme, or over £500,000 on the purchasing of e-bikes, £5.8 million retrofitting the buses, £3 million spent on the clean air zone, and another £1.5 million on cycle routes across the city. Our massive commitment to the 3,100 new council houses being built, biggest programme rolled out across the city. £21 million spent on older people housing, releasing 2- and 3-bedroom houses, which are really needed across this city. £22 million giving electrical upgrades to over 22,000 properties, over £9 million on external wall installations, nearly £6 million in community heating schemes. And as has been already announced, £1.2 million on private rented inspectors, £2.5 million on cremator burners, and Lord Mayor, £60 million into the Heart of the City project, providing the first Grade A zero carbon accommodation. Lord Mayor, as the good citizens of Sheffield know, it's only by voting Labour will they get a competent plan to take this city forward, and will be engaged, enabled and empowered to shape and influence the way out of this pandemic. We'll do this together as a city united. I move.
Thank you, Councillor Fox. Can I call upon Councillor Bob Johnson? You only have 5 minutes. Your Councillor Fox has only left you 5 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Fox. I'd personally like to thank you and everyone that's been involved in delivering this budget, working to make sure that we can deliver a balanced budget, which I know has not been easy at a time when we've been trying to manage challenges that the ongoing pandemic has brought us all. At the start of this pandemic, government told us that they would fund whatever it takes. They've clearly not done this, and they've gone through a really difficult process trying to meet significant budget gaps, which at the same time of dealing with a pandemic is being immensely challenging. This is on course on top of the austerity over the past decade, which has had such an impact on our public services. So I would like to thank everyone in council, both members and officers, for producing yet another balanced budget and doing so while dealing with such uncertainty. And I think it's also a good opportunity to put my thanks in for the incredible efforts we have seen over the past year, going through the extra mile here for the city to get us through the pandemic. Everyone working for the council, not everyone working for the council, but throughout the city, working with other public agencies, voluntary sectors, the private sector, never have the value of our public services and the importance of our public servants been more understood and visible to the public. The government might not recognise this role with their public sector pay freeze for key workers, but as a council we do. And I am really pleased that we're investing over 4 million to provide increases for people working in the care sector, many who do so on low pay. And it is by coming together as a city that we have been able to get through this situation, whether it be contacting vulnerable people to provide support in lockdown, setting up of the COVID helpline, distributing supplies of PPE, delivering medicines, shopping, or making social calls, or even providing free parking passes for the NHS and social care workers throughout this pandemic. We should be proud that we have all worked together as a city to meet this challenge. And where the government has stood by and failed the people who need the support the most, we have taken action, whether it might be providing free school meals in the holidays or laptops to support remote learning for our children. We have done everything that we can to support the people of Sheffield. Whilst we must continue our efforts to beat COVID, now is also a time to look at the future. And as we begin to navigate our way out of this awful situation, it's now more important than ever that we take action as a council to secure our city's recovery and create jobs and rebuild our economy. We are committed to taking this action, and you will have seen the investment we have secured in Fargate, in the new city centre park, Heart of the City 2, new jobs and ambitious plans, expansion of the Olympic Legacy Park, which were announced jointly but with Richard Caborn last month. We have also been working with Business Recovery Group to create Business Recovery Plan, which sets out a strong ambition for how we come out of this situation, stronger as a city, protecting jobs and growing our economy. We have also worked with partners across South Yorkshire to develop our Regional Renewal Action Plan. And I would personally like to thank Mayor Dan Jarvis and the other South Yorkshire leaders for their support and shared work over the past year. We are putting investment into our young people and investing 2 million in the youth service as we bring it in-house, and a further 2.5 in children's services. We have invested in road safety, local district centres and safer neighbourhood wardens, tackling fly tipping, parks and issues we know people care about in their areas. We have over 100 million in green investments, and as we tackle the climate emergency and the city, we are investing more money in housing and important infrastructure such as flood defences. As we look to come out of lockdown, Lord Mayor, this budget provides a platform for investment that will take Sheffield forward. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bob Johnson. May I call upon Councillor Simon Clement Jones to move amendment number 2. You and your seconder may speak for up to a combined total of 20 minutes. Thank you. Councillor Simon Clement Jones.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. First, obviously, I have to thank officers across the council for their hard work in helping us to prepare this notice of motion. I especially have to thank Dave Phillips and Peter Carr from Finance and the other finance officers who helped with what has been an extremely thorough process this year. Certainly the most thorough process I've done in a shadow notice of motion. So everyone, colleagues and the people of Sheffield can be assured that this notice of motion is deliverable. If we vote this through, we could do everything that is in this starting from the first day of the financial year. So I have to thank also my colleagues. I have to thank Laura Haddon, who also helped to deliver this, I believe, extremely forward-looking and good for the city of Sheffield shadow budget. I have to thank, obviously, my first opportunity really to speak to the council for 12 months. So I do have to thank the people of the staff of Sheffield City Council for their extraordinary efforts over the last 12 months. I mean, to begin with, obviously, as a politician, we didn't have a great great role at the very beginning. We needed to stand back and allow people to deal with what was going on. But we certainly saw the extraordinary efforts that were made by Sheffield City Council and their staff at the beginning, and how over the last 12 months, how they've adapted to the changing circumstances, and how we've had to get here after 12 months. We're all still here. We're all still keeping going, and the staff and people of Sheffield are still going. I do have to thank again the people of Sheffield. A year ago, when we were heading into this, I did say that it would be communities coming together. It would be those sacrifices, big and small, the big and small kindnesses that the people have shown that would help us to get through this together. There has been tragedy, but again, there has also been those sacrifices, big and small, that have made it more bearable for all of us. And the kindnesses, big and small, that have meant so much to us all. I do have quite a lot of time today, so I do want to use this opportunity to thank Councillor Dorr. She is unexpectedly, I think, had to step into, almost back into a role that she was in. I know what a difficult job the leader of the council is, and I would just like to thank her for her service to Sheffield for the last 10 years. Whilst I've got the opportunity, because I don't really believe in doing it once you're gone. So thank you, Julie. I think I'll then move on to our notes of motion. I've only used 3 minutes so far. Obviously, the big thing we've been looking at is the recovery from coronavirus and the effects of lockdown. I mean, I think it's how we need to start thinking of these things. It's not just, it's not just a virus. It's the toll it's taken on all of us. So, we're proposing to put more mental and targeted mental health in schools over the next 12 months to counteract, try and find out, what those effects are and what we can do about it. We want to, as councillors, we love our luncheon clubs. I certainly love all the ones in Beachwood Green. We want to get those back up and running as soon as we safely can. We want to help those luncheon clubs to do their thing. And as I say, and get back to it. So whatever help they need, we want to give them some extra help to do that. On business, we've all seen. I've seen up close with some of the people I know, some of the business I deal with. The direct effects on local businesses, on employment, on people's opportunities. We need to promote that. We want to buy local. So we've put some proposals in to help people do that, to make them more aware of what their opportunities are. We also want to make a £2 million investment in local and district centres to release that pent-up demand that we know is out there. And we want that money to stay in Sheffield. We want the local businesses, the great local businesses we have here, to get the benefit when we do come out, and to give them the support that they need. Again, the young people, again, their opportunities have been reduced over the last 12 months. We need to make sure that their opportunities are widened over the next 12, so that they can do what they want to do, so they can start their own business, so that they can get ahead. They can use what hopefully is an opportunity for them to kind of get over the last 12 months if it's been holding them back. We want more people walking and cycling. We were big on this last year. We're even bigger on it this year. So looking back at my shadow budget last year, it seemed almost prophetic, I think. But as I say, walking and cycling has become a huge issue for us, and we want to get people doing that. We want to provide more citywide infrastructure. We want to concentrate on the local as well. So one of the big things we want to look at is community assemblies. I know I'm sort of pleased to see that after 10 years, the Labour Party is looking towards doing more local working. We certainly want to do even more, I think than that. I mean, obviously, we're looking to specific proposals that will be coming through. But I think everyone accepts that when it comes to local working, we put the hard yards in here, and we know what's required. And so, we put more resources in, and obviously more resources, mean that there's more power, and those officers and the councils have more authority, and that's what we want. We want share power. We want you as councillors. We want people out there, everyone who's got an interest in anything really, to be able to affect change, and that's what community assemblies is all about. And so that's why we're putting millions through community assemblies into cycling and walking, millions for road safety into cycling and walking. We have people come here. month after month asking for road safety. It used to be actually when we were in power that people would come and the council member had a bit of an easier time, because sometimes you'd say, well, your community assembly has money to do this, go and speak to them, and we got stuff done through community assemblies directly because people came and asked us what it was, rather than doing it from the centre. So there's millions coming from community infrastructure levy, which will be going directly through community assemblies, spreading out the power, spreading out the money, so that people get the services and the stuff that they need and require in their local communities, getting it down to that level. So I look forward to the special council, and also look forward to what Labour will be proposing, and obviously we'll have our proposals. And as I say, let's hope that together we can actually do something, because I think the pandemic showed that the fact we didn't have that very local work. I mean, God bless them, the local officers did great work. But there just wasn't enough of them. They weren't given the authority. They didn't have the authority from the start that they needed. So we had to kind of reinvent something that should have been there, I think, for the people of Sheffield at the start. So to say, I'm looking forward to the changes that hopefully will be made, that we can bring back that concentration on devolution and on local working. I think in general, again, we want to talk about, we want to help the people who are helping the most vulnerable in this city. Again, it's about things big and small. We want to help foster carers by showing that we value them by subsidising them, rather letting them off their council tax. And so that we can put back the compassion to show that we cherish people, the young carers that we'd be giving a free bus pass to help them get around the city, the money that we'd be putting into helping our carers to develop themselves professionally, and be the best that they can be, so that we can keep them in the industry, so that they can improve their own prospects and their own skills, so that we get the best possible care we can for the city. So I welcome the 4.2 million that we're putting into carers, but that was desperately needed. We know that, and obviously we all know now how much we value these people. It wouldn't be a shadow budget if I didn't mention the World Student Games. Obviously, we are still paying £25 million a year. We have, unfortunately, this year, it's crystallised a lot of the problems that came out of basically where this was set up from many years ago, and the choices and the Sheffield international venues have made over the years. We are crystallising millions of pounds of that now. Some of it is down to the coronavirus, like I said, but there are millions and millions of pounds that are down to the poor oversight of this council. And we are finding, I sit on the audit committee and find that, there are other areas that I'm concerned about. I mean, educational healthcare plans across the city, have just become a problem. And again, I think it's one of those problems almost of compassion, in that, we look at the budget, we look at the numbers, but we don't look at what the actual human costs of some of these things are. So I would urge, I think, that when we're looking, at these kind of things that are cost-saving measures, that we make sure that we keep an eye on the compassion that we may be looking, and we need to cherish and keep hold of that. Again, volunteers, we want to bring back snow wardens, we want climate change wardens, and I think we want to bring back community. That's what we want. We want to bring back that sense, and you can't really do it from the centre, but we want to plant that seed, plant that crystal, so that people can help themselves and help their communities. As I say, I think that's my plea for kind of the intangibles across the city that don't quite end up in the budget. So we need to bring back. I will close by saying that I think if you vote Liberal Democrat at the next election, we can deliver all of this. We can deliver devolution. We can deliver the decisions down in your community that you want. We will listen to you if you vote Liberal Democrat. I think 10 years after, Labour have realised that perhaps they haven't listened enough. If you vote Liberal Democrat, we will certainly listen to you. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Jones. Can I call upon Councillor Shafak Mohammed? You have 9.5 minutes left of the 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Council. Lord Mayor, when we sat in this exact position, well, actually in the town hall last year, none of us knew what the year ahead we had to face. And I just want to start by paying tribute to all the work that everyone in the city has done, whether they're in the city council, in the NHS, or actually in the voluntary community sector, in terms of helping. And you'll hear a lot today about community, and I genuinely want to thank the communities for what they've done, whether it's helping their neighbours, whether it's actually setting up food banks, whether it's actually, you know, just making phone calls to people that are in isolation. Loneliness has been a massive issue. And clearly we've all had to change the way we work, Lord Mayor. You from, knowing what you were doing previously to now what you've had to do, which is very much remote working. We've had to change our way of working. Clearly plans that were made by everyone in terms of what the year ahead had in store for them had to change. And I want to echo what Councillor Clement Jones has said. Now, I just want to personally thank Julie. I know I did it at the Outbreak Control Board meeting, the final one that she chaired, that, yeah, we've had our ups and downs. We've had some robust conversations in council, but actually it was a very difficult task for Councillor Julie Dore, who we all know was going to stand down, had to carry on, pick up the mantle, take on a totally different role to what we normally expect a leader of council to do, in the sense of leading very much at this pandemic from a kind of public health point of view. I'm proud to have served on that outbreak control. I continue to do so, and I want to thank each and every one of those members on that outbreak control board. And my message to everyone is we've worked so hard, we've achieved so much despite the tragedy, and the tragedy has been personal for us, Lord Mayor, in the sense that we've lost two of our long-standing colleagues that was with us last year, and because of COVID are no longer here, Councillor Pat Midgley and Councillor Peter Rippon. But Lord Mayor, we've got to move forward, and as a result, we've got to, as a credible opposition, that we need to put forward a positive Liberal alternative for Sheffield. And therefore, I want to thank Dave Phillips and his team for assisting both myself and Simon Clement Jones and others in terms of drafting our budget. The Liberal Democrats are putting forward a positive alternative for Sheffield with a city council that restores trust, transparency and truth. A council that listens to people and responds to their concerns with real action, works in their interest. There's a better and more efficient way to run this council, where power is not concentrated in a few Labour councils, but instead empowers local councils like we have done during the pandemic, and more importantly, communities to make decisions locally that affect their everyday lives. So Liberal Democrats care about local business, the health of local people, the environment, and have found money in the budget to support innovative and much needed projects to boost COVID recovery, care for people and protect the environment. And Liberal Democrats can and will build a better Sheffield for the people of Sheffield. And in terms of COVID recovery, Lord Mayor, the Lib Dems budget has put business at the heart of it, of the COVID recovery. And we would invest in Business Sheffield, doubling the funding for Launchpad to support young entrepreneurs to start and to grow their own businesses, focusing on IT and tech industries, increasing grants for local community groups who are so important to community cohesion, promoting health, well-being, tackling loneliness, as I mentioned earlier, and actually reducing knife crime. Our budget recognises the impact of public transport post-COVID and commits to funding for walking and cycling schemes, working with communities so we actually get buy-in from them, reinstating a free city centre bus, and calls upon the Sheffield City Region Mayor, Dan Jarvis, to urgently overhaul the city's bus system. Labour cost ordinary people money, and I think Councillor Clement Jones has mentioned one, and I might return to that later. But Sheffield City Council clearly did fail to distribute all its business grant, and over £15 million was left unallocated and will be clawed back by the government. That's 1,600 businesses that did want help, but for whatever reason weren't funded. That's the legacy of what we've seen. So we're here to praise when praise is due, but also here to hold to account, and that's a major failure of this council. We also acknowledge that there's considerable demand for adult social care, both at a local level but nationally. Therefore, actually here, it should be funded from government, but councils across the country, like ours, are left with little choice but to raise council tax, and often that hits the most vulnerable. Our city remains saddled, as Councillor Clement Jones says, by debts run up by previous administrations, including millions of taxpayers' money still going towards paying off the sporting facilities associated with World Student Games. That's a fact, even though Don Valley has been demolished. And clearly we've had issues with Sheffield City Trust and Sheffield International Venues, who run our sports and entertainment facilities. Often there's been issues with their maintenance, and clearly there's been issues about how they've actually spent some of the taxpayers' money that's been highlighted. Clearly there's a climate of urgency. This council and this city set an ambitious target to be carbon neutral. And as I pointed out, by 2030, last last time, Lord Mayor, that actually we set that target and then we did hardly anything other than commission a report. So we do have a real challenge in our hands. We have a very shoddy recycling rate. We're 300 out of 345 local authorities when it comes to recycling. So our budget would provide a bigger blue bin and expand plastic recycling. Clearly, Lord Mayor, the council has committed to planting trees, 100,000 over the next 10 years. We want to double that to 200,000. And clearly, council has not made the headway that it should have done, because planting trees will help with carbon reduction and also make our air cleaner. Clearly, what we also want to look at is food waste and reverse vending. That clearly happens across Europe. It's been very successful. We clearly want to invest, particularly in terms of our high streets, not just city centre focus, but actually in our major shopping centres, whether it's Chapeltown, whether it's Hillsborough, Woodseats, Darnell, etc. Liberal Democrats, if you vote for us, we'll invest in your city centre, but also invest, more importantly, in your local shopping centres. So that's a commitment from us. Clearly, we also want to devolve power. We don't want to centralise it. There's a very clear message that was sent to us via the referendum that was triggered, that they want to see change. And they want to see a change from the strong leader model to a more committee-based system. So that's why we are advocating bringing back community assemblies, but actually giving them money. So £1 million to community assemblies, a minimum of 10,000 per ward. So therefore, they have real power in their hands and they can actually do things locally. And then clearly the other funding will be linked to deprivation. Young carers have been a huge issue for us, and we want to actually support young carers. And in our budget, once again, we are looking at providing free bus travel for young carers during school holidays. The safety of our city has been a huge issue, and clearly knife crime has hit headlines. And like previously, we want to learn from work that's been done in Glasgow and elsewhere. And as a result, we want to invest in local community projects. In the past, we've championed the work of projects like the Hood, the Unity Gym, but there's going to be many more out there that we actually want to do. And clearly, Lord Mayor, we also want to make our roads safer. So clearly, we want to invest in, crossings for our young people, whether that's in Hanging Water Road or Halfway or Woodseats, and no doubt anywhere else where people come, because we want to devolve those budgets down. So clearly, there's some choices to be made. The people of Sheffield have got a clear Liberal alternative. If they vote Liberal Democrat in May, they will be able to see what a Liberal Democrat council can do. We've set a fully costed budget. And I commend this to council, and I commend this, more importantly, to the people of Sheffield, that if you want to see change in May, then you have to vote for it. And to have change in May, please vote Lib Dem.
Thank you, Councillor Shafak Mohammed. May I call upon Councillor Douglas Johnson, please, to move amendment number 3. You and your seconder may speak for up to a combined total of 20 minutes. Councillor Douglas Johnson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And to start by saying a big thanks to all the finance officers who've put this budget together at a particularly uncertain time. We've heard what the Chancellor said today in his speech earlier on. And of course, I hope the Chancellor is tuning in to hear these fine speeches we've had this afternoon. I just want to go on and say, just reflect on the Chancellor's speech there. It actually sounds like he's made some very difficult choices for a lot of small businesses. This 3-month business rates holiday is just not enough for businesses, but it's also going to be a huge amount of work for our finance officers and therefore cost to the council in doing that. But local businesses are going to need help to work through that new announcement, and we are very pleased to see that our budget proposes to extend the funding for the business advisors to help people through that. It's very important to help small businesses in the city. So unlike the Chancellor, I think the Sheffield Greens are serious about doing what we can to address the climate emergency and what we can to protect the poorest people in society. So the climate crisis obviously needs major government spending in the same way that was available for COVID and also for the banks. But at a local level here, our budget's about what we can do here and now. And our focus is on making people's lives better, and especially for the poorest households in the city who've suffered especially under COVID. Now, I don't expect the Chancellor to recognise what it's like if you're in low-paid work or if you're trying to apply for universal credit. But the point about our budget proposals is that it shows that these things go hand in hand with dealing with the climate crisis. So one of our proposals is a very significant injection of £142,000 a year permanently, that's every year, into advice centres who can really make a difference to lifting people out of poverty and helping people deal with crises. And on top of that, we're proposing to support low-income households with their council tax bills, which, as we all know, are rising a lot this year. We propose to increase that to the fund of £2 million to support those low-income households there. On advice, we know that a lot of social security benefits go unclaimed, so getting these from central government into Sheffield will benefit the local economy as well as the individuals themselves. And we also want to draw on the help of the voluntary sector to use their expertise to help this council bring central government money into Sheffield. But far too often this council does miss out on the government money that is on offer despite austerity. And where money is available for Sheffield, we need to seize it for Sheffield. So at Nottingham, we often quote that Nottingham's been very successful over many years now for getting in a lot of government money for quite inspiring improvements to their transport system. Their workplace parking levy on the big businesses has been a success. This administration made a promise to start on that, but it's never happened. So we propose funding to start off that work, and we're looking for real long-term improvements in the city's infrastructure for transport. And right now, we want to bring back the freebie bus for the city centre. It's to connect up the transport proposals, make sense of the temporary infrastructure changes which we've seen to improve walking and cycling, and in particular to help disabled and older people who seem to be most flummoxed by the changes in the city centre. That will join up those things. And we also propose free trams and buses at Christmas. We need people to do the work on this climate change activity. And so we're proposing not just a single member of staff, but a whole team of 6 people to work on climate change. And they will be looking at these issues, but we're looking at projects like a major solar power farm leading on what Warrington Council has developed. So that's quite major, really, in terms of making the city more energy sustainable. And that team will be backed up with a new £3 million fund for a carbon reduction investment fund. This is significant because it allows the team to draw on resources for quick wins, for good sustainability ideas without having to spend a long time looking around for the money. And this will speed up climate change actions. 2 years ago, this council declared a climate emergency, and we've been disappointed with the speed of progress there. The climate emergency was originally kicked off by Green councillors in Bristol. Bristol led the way there. And we need to see action on home insulation and space heating in particular in people's homes. Not forgetting the council is the city's biggest landlord. It was only this year, only last month, that the climate change was even recognised as a priority in the housing revenue account. So, sorry, I'm just looking at Jill Duckworth's message. On climate change, it's certainly true that, as the Labour amendment puts it, that the window for implementing meaningful change has already diminished, and that is of concern. I just want to say something about a few more of our permanent spending proposals. So, reducing the cost of bulky waste collections. This is to reverse the Labour administration's price hike for low-income households a couple of years ago, when they put up the cost of removing bulky waste. We've got to link that with the noticeable increase in fly tipping around the city. So we want to reduce that and take that burden off the low-income households. Those who can afford to pay the higher charges are able to do so, but those who can't, that is of concern. And we want to put more resources into tackling substance misuse amongst the most vulnerable people and dealing with homelessness and antisocial behaviour in the city centre, which is all too visible and affects everyone across the city who comes to the city centre. We want to put in more resources for heritage, for planning and enforcement of planning breaches by big developers. We want to put more money into parks and into libraries, and also well over £1 million every year in future years for social care, which of course we all agree is an absolutely pressing crisis. So looking at the Labour and the Lib Dem amendments, I have to say there is much to be said in both of those. The amendments between the parties seem to be moving slightly closer to each other over the years. And of course, we don't really have a problem with people copying our homework. It's nice to see those ideas that were in Green Budget amendments a few years ago popping up in the others. But actually, if we were collaborative, we could do a lot. And it was very pleasing to hear Terry Fox, Councillor Fox, read out quite a list of things that the council is doing now that we had proposed in the past. It's nice seeing them come to fruition. If we all 84 of us will work together, then we can do that. There's got to be a lot of scope for collaboration in future years. And of course, next year, it's quite possible we'll have into some proper negotiations over how to make a budget fit for a city under a three-party council. So in the meantime, I'm going to ask everyone to, I'm going to commend this budget, I'm going to ask everyone to vote for it, and I'm going to hand over to Councillor Teal. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Alison Teal, you may speak for up to 12 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to thank the finance officers for the time that they've spent in helping us put forward our Green Budget Amendment. They're always very patient and very kind and very helpful, so thank you to them. Green colleagues, fellow members and residents of Sheffield, I'm pleased to be speaking in support of our Green Group Budget Amendment. Since 2008, the Green Party has been proposing a Green New Deal to address the climate and ecological emergency we face and to create green jobs. The COVID-19 pandemic has only increased the urgency for action. I would like to advocate for this council to adopt the precautionary principle, which is a core principle of sustainability and was included in the Earth Summit, resulting in the Rio Declaration in 1992. This produced conventions dealing with climate change, biodiversity, forestry, and recommended development practices called Agenda 21. Almost 30 years ago, members of the UN agreed to Agenda 21, a plan stating that global, national, and local government organizations need to consider how humans impact on the environment. The precautionary principle deals with threats of serious or irreversible damage or adverse consequences where there is a lack of full scientific certainty. We do not often have certainty about the likely outcomes of things which may affect the environment, wildlife, and human health. We saw this very clearly in the global response to the COVID-19 pandemic recently, and still ongoing, of course. Those countries who adopted a precautionary approach, like New Zealand, responded to the threat of COVID-19 by taking strong preventative measures well before there was full scientific certainty about the possible effects of COVID-19 on their population. Other countries, like the USA and the UK, waited far longer for scientific proof of the extent of the harmful and deadly effects of COVID-19. To date, New Zealand has had 26 deaths from COVID-19, whereas the UK has approximately 123,000 deaths. We acted far too late. The wait-and-see approach led to thousands of deaths. Will we continue with this wait-and-see approach with respect to the effects of the climate and ecological crisis? Will we allow this Tory government to use its instruments of power, like planning inspectors, to overrule our decisions based on what we have decided is best for our local community and local ecology, as we've just seen happen with respect to Althorpe Fields? The current government's primary aim is to facilitate the accumulation of capital for the benefit of those who are already wealthy. We must stand up to them. The climate and ecological crisis has accrued a substantial scientific evidence base, more than enough to justify the implementation of Agenda 21 and a precautionary approach. And yet, governments at all levels across the globe, despite the agreement of the 1992 Earth Summit, are are almost 30 years later failing to adopt precautionary principles, and this includes Sheffield City Council. We must address the massive changes needed, and we must stop waiting for the government to rescue us. There are many, many things we can do as a city, which we have outlined in our budget amendment. It is not exhaustive by any means, but we must make a start. To apply the precautionary principle, we must make realistic and radical steps to transform and adapt our city in preparation for the near and longer term future. We need to make changes which are self-sustaining and viable for the long term, adopt a custodial role, and move away entirely from the exploitation of nature and resources for economic benefit. For example, we could use natural flood management techniques which will work for generations into the future, rather than heavy engineering solutions involving massive amounts of concrete with huge quantities of embodied carbon that will require maintenance and ultimate replacement. We have a choice. We can return to facilitating self-sustaining ecosystems that dramatically reduce the risk of flooding, or we can have human interventions that effectively shift the problem downstream for other local authorities to manage, as we saw in what happened with Doncaster. We must think systemically and longer term for the sake of children and future generations, and I am proud that our budget amendment reflects this. For example, we recognise the importance of recruiting a team of staff with expertise to enable us to plan for a myriad of adaptation plans that we must design and implement urgently. Our amendment puts forward realistic and necessary proposals such as locally owned renewable energy solar farms. The Green City Partnership Board has commissioned reports by Arups and Ricardo, and we now, helpfully, have baseline measures to enable us to calculate the scale and the extent of work to be done to reduce our carbon emissions to net zero. We know that 33% of our carbon emissions come from the domestic sector, and we know that we can dramatically reduce these emissions through properly insulating homes. 26% of emissions come from transport, and we have made several budget proposals which could bring about significant reductions, including segregated cycleways to make it safe for people of all ages to gain the health benefits from not using their cars and riding a bicycle instead. Professor Jill Edmondson at Sheffield University has researched ways we can greatly increase our local food production, which would be another way to not only significantly reduce carbon emissions, but also could have tremendous health benefits. In so many ways, carbon reduction alternatives have corresponding physical and mental health benefits: cleaner air, boosting biodiversity, fresh healthy food, increasing exercise, and more vibrant green spaces. All of our budgets and future budgets must be focused on what we need to do to protect future generations from global warming. From properly insulating homes to building new infrastructure to generate energy, creating low traffic neighbourhoods, and investing in biodiversity and urban horticulture. I've no doubt that the people of Sheffield will see the benefits of so many positive changes, and they would work with the council to make them happen. And as Douglas has mentioned, we would hope to work collaboratively in the future with other parties. I would like to commend the Green Group budget amendment to this council and to the residents of Sheffield. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Teal. Thank you. We're now going to move to the debate on the matter. All speakers shall have up to 2 minutes, and I shall issue a prompt when 30 seconds of time remaining. What I propose to do is try and make this as fair as possible, and rather than take them in order as they've come in, I want to try and go across the parties as fairly as I can. There are quite a lot of speakers, but before I call the first speaker, I'd like to call upon Joe Otten, who wishes to declare, Councillor Joe Otten, who wishes to declare an interest.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm not sure this is necessary, but just in case, there was a mention of the crossing on Hanging Water Road. As my daughter has a place at High Store School next year and will be using that every day, I thought I ought to declare an interest in that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lord Mayor, if I may interrupt, I did send you a message earlier, but when we were talking about the jobs at Rolls-Royce, my brother-in-law is one of the people that will be losing his job as a result of that. So I ought to mention that, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Rooney. Yeah. So, okay then. So the first speaker to call is Councillor Peter Price.
Blimey, not early. Well, it will be no surprise to members on what I want to speak on. I want to speak against the Liberal amendment, and particularly their paragraph 11 and their mention of the World Student Games, because it's 30th anniversary this year, 30 years. And of course, Councillor Shafak completes to repeat the lie that we're still repaying the debt on the facilities, when clearly the council in its wisdom used those facilities to borrow money against to sustain the services. Indeed, his own party borrowed £35 million to put into revenue. We borrowed £30 million, and there's been several £20 million plus since. So what you're paying back is not the facilities, it's the refinanced debt that we took out 30 years ago. Let's get that clear. You mentioned it was a poor choice at that time. Well, let's get it clear. At that time, this city had an unemployment rate of 15.2%, 15.2%, and it was derelict from the M1 to almost to the Wicker Arches. The purpose of investing in that was to lift the image and profile of our city, to attract inward investment, and to begin to get our fingers on the tourism agenda, which was a big growth industry, which we got none. Since that date, 20 hotels have been built in this city. Private sector, over 20 new hotels have been built. We used to have 4. On top of that, we attracted in national competition, the magnificent English Institute of Sport, and also the National Skating Centre for Sport. Then it's come to the Don Valley Stadium. Unlike Manchester, whose stadium is now Manchester City's football ground, and our national stadium is West Ham's football ground, the site is now attracting, believe it or not, £100,000 of investment. Currently, £100,000. There'll be a permanent small stadium, 3,000 seater for the Sheffield Eagles and the Sheffield United women's football team, 3,000 seater. There's an indoor stadium going up there for the Sheffield Sharks basketball team, which will have 3 courts. There's an orthopaedic and rehabilitation centre and a National Centre for Children Technology and the Academy. Sorry, 2 minutes into enough, but it's a magnificent. I'm sure you're proud of what's happening, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Martin Smith, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, the impact of COVID on Sheffield has been truly terrible, and we're only at the very beginning of the social and economic recovery of the city. As government job retention schemes wind down, this will almost inevitably lead to significantly higher levels of unemployment. And we know that young people and small business are likely to bear the brunt of this. But small businesses are the backbone of the city's economy, and young people are the future of Sheffield. So we need to give both groups hope for the future. We also know that new business startups are going to be vital for the city's economic recovery. New businesses in Sheffield tend to be successful, but frankly, there aren't enough of them. And the Business Recovery Group noted that we lag behind other major cities in this regard. That's why the Lib Dems are proposing a number of amendments to address these issues. Lord Mayor, the Lib Dems will double council funding for the Launchpad Business Support Programme, with particular emphasis for young people who want to start or grow their own business. And we will introduce a grant or reward scheme to support this. Lord Mayor, we also know that council support for businesses to date has largely focused on the city centre and district centres, which means that some parts of Sheffield haven't yet received the help that they truly deserve. And that's why the Lib Dems will increase the headcount of the Business Sheffield team and ensure that all parts of the city receive the support they need by introducing a business support officer for every local area. And we will also increase funding for a buy local campaign for every local area. Lord Mayor, the young people and business community of Sheffield have shown amazing resilience and creativity over the past year. Let's give them the support they need to do that. I support the Lib Dem amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Ruth Mesereau. This is Councillor Ruth Mesereau's maiden speech. Thank you.
I'd like to highlight an item in our budget to continue funding for music lessons for vulnerable and disadvantaged children and children who have barriers. Every child has musical hopes and aspirations, but not every child has the means to achieve these. Music can really open up the lives of children, and it shouldn't be an optional extra, nor a luxury that is only available to those that can afford it. It's completely essential to our well-being. Every child deserves a chance to experience the benefits of music. This music funding isn't just for individual instrumental music lessons, but also for specialist workshops in things like beatbox, samba drumming and body percussion, plus get-togethers bringing in parents and carers so that as many people as possible are included in the musical journey. 30 children each year have benefited from this Musical Stars programme run by the Sheffield Music Hub. Their funding runs out in July. I believe that it's vital that we keep this going. I'm sure we'd all agree that Sheffield has a fantastic and varied musical heritage, and we mustn't lose this. We need to keep this going for our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mesereau. Before I go to the next speaker, I just need to make a point that Councillor Alan Law is in hospital, did we say? I believe he's in hospital, so just to record his apologies. Thank you. Councillor Brian Lodge, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Apologies for that. I was trying to get unmuted. Once again, we see another ambitious budget for Sheffield from this Labour Council. A budget with proposals to support our residents, our businesses and our communities. Citywide proposals, but delivering local impacts. So I'd like to highlight a few of these areas and what this means for Burley Ward residents, the ward I represent. We've got great many community litter-based picking groups throughout Burley Ward. Hackenthorpe litter pickers, Base Green litter pickers, Burley Artisans, the Craigs Group, the new Freshfield Library Coordinator Group, and the many, many smaller informal groups and residents all working to tackle this selfish behaviour of others, the blight of litter. This budget sees investment across the city to tackle litter, fly tipping and graffiti, delivering on better communities for all. I've been privileged to serve the Burley Ward for 18 years now, and with colleagues over the years we've identified funding for environmental improvements at Freshfield and Hackenthorpe shops. So we're excited at the opportunity the £2 million investment our district centres presents to improve the Base Green shops. We're already working to reinstate the CCTV system that was previously run from the now closed Tara office to help in reducing antisocial behaviour and litter. And we look forward to developing programmes to deal with the empty units and rebuild confidence in this important shopping area. We're looking to reignite this area to the benefit of the residents, the shops and the surrounding businesses alike. Now, all tenants should live in warm, dry, safe and secure properties. So we're investing £256 million towards improving our council housing stock, including roof replacement work and rewiring. Work that will help in delivering energy efficiency and improve the overall standard of the housing stock. We've already seen some of the great work on replacing roofs in Base Green in previous phases of this work. And so the Burley Ward residents are reaping the benefits in reduced energy costs and greater efficiencies. But we're not just stopping at the existing properties. Our budget sees an investment of £289 million towards building new properties across the city. Residents are now moving into the 36 new council properties that have been built on the Weekland estate, the first council houses to be built in the area for many, many years. In 2 weeks' time, Cabinet will be considering proposals for investment in older people's independent living schemes, and there's a scheme that's proposed on the former Newstead estate in Burley. If this is successful, over 140 one-bed, two-bed quality apartments with communal areas, having a knock-on effect of releasing many 2- and 3-bedroom properties across the area, family homes that are so desperately needed throughout the Burley Ward. There are many things that people are saying within the...
Lodge. Thank you.
Well, 2 minutes isn't enough to do justice to our budget, but I commend this budget to the council.
Thank you. Councillor Tim Huggan, please.
Lord Mayor, I'd like to commend the amendment put forward by the Liberal Democrats today. I want to talk to the burning issue of today, that is climate change. the thing that has produced the most hot air from the ruling party and the least action. Sheffield has set an ambitious target to be carbon neutral by 2030, but ignores Sheffield's abysmal record on recycling and commits nothing to improving it. Shunting ever more rubbish into incinerator does not, for a circular economy, make. If you vote Lib Dem in May, our budget through providing bigger blue bins and expanding the types of plastic to be recycled in Sheffield puts us on that path. Our budget contains many proposals that will make Sheffield more environmentally friendly and a healthier place to live. This includes setting a path to a food waste collection service and through a reverse vending system. The Liberal Democrats have also found money for local communities to invest in programmes in their wards to improve the local environment, invest in recycling and invest in community projects. If you vote Lib Dem in May, you will create a new Green Sheffield Fund and additional pot of money for local communities to decide how best they would like to invest in the environment. If you vote Lib Dem in May, we will help people recycle their old items by providing areas of low car ownership with skips for large items and household rubbish to help reduce fly tipping. If you vote Lib Dem in May, we will reduce the reliance on cars and help to reduce emissions by providing e-cargo bikes and cycle storage at key points in the city centres and at local centres. Something was announced to great fanfare last September, but still largely undelivered. If you vote Lib Dem, we will help allotment holders, present and future, by reducing rents on community allotments. This Lib Dem amendment tackles real issues in real time, no grandiose or verbose pledges, but a route for Sheffield to move forward with purpose to a sustainable future.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Turpin, please.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I'd like to say there is much in both the Labour and Lib Dem amendments that I like the look of. However, there's also things that I don't. Particularly, the Lib Dems claim to be the only party with a full plan to tackle climate change. They tried this last year, and honestly, is nobody in the Lib Dem camp embarrassed about this claim? Because they ought to be. And particularly on this subject, I'd like to just say that Alison Teal's speech was absolutely magnificent. It's a shame that we can't vote in parts, as like I said, there are things in both that I could get behind. It's a painful decision to make. Do I vote for things I don't really like, or do I vote against things that I do like? I want the council to develop a way to vote in parts next year, as they do in some other councils with more progressive administrations, such as Brighton. I strongly disagree with the all or nothing approach. People and ideas are not so black and white, and this system does not allow for nuance, mirroring our broken electoral system and the strong leader model of governance. Being able to split the amendments and vote in parts will give Sheffield and those who live here the best outcomes. It will show that their elected members can and will work together for their benefit, something we will all need to do if there is a hung council after May. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Mazza Iqbal, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. That was unexpected. Just to pick up the leader of the opposition's point first, Lord Mayor, the misinformation is being perpetuating now for almost a year, Chair. I challenge him. These 1,900 applications he's referring to, we can't accept fraudulent applications, Lord Mayor. Is that what he's suggesting to me? That I should endorse, or our officers should endorse these fraudulent applications that are being made? It's very, very irresponsible, Lord Mayor. We as a council have supported businesses in the tune of over £100 million, Lord Mayor, over the last 12 months. We've also, Business Sheffield has also handled 6,000 calls, provided one-to-one support to over 300 businesses, and we continue to provide that support. Also, over the last 12 months, my colleagues have mentioned Heart of the City too. I'm surprised both the Liberals and the Green Amendment hasn't referred to that. Over the last 12 months, very quickly, Lord Mayor, we've seen CMS, move in. New World Trading have signed the lease. Radisson Blue Hotel is progressing. Leah's Yard has now got occupants.
30
and,
seconds.
And I can say we've also announced the Pound Park yesterday. We're also, as my colleagues have said, investing in our wonderful, well-loved district centres. It's not £2 million Council Lodge. We're investing a further £1 million into our district centres. So £3 million across district centres, not like the Liberal Democrats, Lord Mayor, where they've picked a handful. We want to ensure that our money goes across the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Adam Hurst.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, I want to make some comments about the Lib Dem amendment. I mean, the thing that really amazed me when I first read it was if you look at point 26, they talk about how the austerity and the cuts that we've had in Sheffield were absolutely necessary following the recession. Yet, in spite of having supported that austerity, they're now making a number of spending commitments without saying where that's going to come from. And I am actually quite surprised at that. I also have to wonder, when we come out of COVID, what will they support? Or if they went in with a Tory government again, what would they support in terms of further cuts to get out of the increased borrowing that makes the recession pale into insignificance? But what I wanted to really do was just focus on a couple of areas. One of the areas that they seem to constantly have a go at is trade union representation, and the fact that we actually allow facility time for trade union reps. Now, they seem to think this is a bad thing. I think it's a very good thing, because we know that job retention and wages are much higher where you have good union representation. And let me tell you, you can have all the funds you want in the world. Having people on good, secure salaries is good for the economy, and it's good for those people. So I think I'm very proud of the fact that we are very pro-union. I think the other thing that I want to say that I'm really proud of, okay, is we have managed to spend an additional £80 million in the local economy. And we have an ethical procurement policy that now means that 80% of our supply chain is now paid the real living wage. That, I think, is good for people's welfare. I think it is extremely good for the economy. And I think it is for this that we should commend the Labour amendment and actually quit Lib Dems. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Councillor Ian Auckland, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Congratulations, Ruth, on your maiden speech. Lord Mayor, the Labour administration have had years to make their proposition on local assemblies that failed totally. In May, I invite people to vote Liberal Democrat, the original and best party of pavement and community politics. Lord Mayor, our budget amendment seeks a transport system where we can all slow down and be frustration-free, where we travel less but achieve more, where Sheffielders in their neighbourhoods can help make their own choices for their neighbourhoods. And for most, ending car dependency, but as a matter of choice rather than compulsion. So our budget devolves powers to communities and devolves money so that that power can mean something, can be achieved. And our budget strengthens accountability by moving decision making to the lowest possible level, to the local level. I particularly welcome our proposals to invest in neighbourhood centres, not least wood seats in my own ward, which is in need of comprehensive proposals and investment. And particularly, Lord Mayor, we need a dedicated team to deliver local transport schemes. The key to sustainability,
30 seconds.
I am convinced, lies in our neighbourhoods. And Liberal Democrats would deliver that power to our neighbourhoods to make a real contribution, not least in transport. And finally, Lord Mayor, let me thank transport workers all particularly in all fields who have kept the city on the move through this dreadful COVID crisis. Lord Mayor, I'd like to support our amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Anne Murphy, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Sheffield needs a housing market that delivers choice, quality and affordability in every part of our city. The council has set out its commitment to build between 2,000 and 2,300 new homes each year by 2022. 725 of these must be affordable. As our city thrives under a Labour council, we can and will make sure there is decent housing for all. I see this in action in the Manor and Castle ward. More housing has been built in partnership with private sector, with the housing associations and with the housing company. Princess Gardens, the Eclipse Estate, Sky Edge, and there is more to come. Because we need decent, good quality housing in our communities for young families to get their foot on the housing ladder through affordable housing and share ownership. We also need to be planning the quality housing provision for older people.
30 seconds.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. And the progressing projects to make this happen. And this would release housing for others and a ladder. Where we live feeling safe, our homes in our communities is important to us all. Labour is about making sure we put all that in place so our citizens can thrive. That's why I'm supporting the Labour budget. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Steve Harris, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In recommending the Lib Dem amendment, it's widely accepted in this chamber that social care is in crisis. Before this evil pandemic swept the country last spring, there was an estimated £4 billion black hole in care funding and more than 100,000 unfilled vacancies in the sector. The Commons Health and Social Committee now says 7 billion. 8 years ago, the government legislated for a new funding model, which the Tories scrapped 2 years later. 8 years on, and only yet another promise to fix social care, and nothing in the Chancellor's budget today that I can see. Many social care providers in Sheffield have faced COVID outbreaks, with some sadly losing significant numbers of people in care as a result, and now face market challenges and cost pressures, not least in the area of insurance cover. Yet, despite the additional challenges COVID brought with it, our healthcare heroes have shown an epic sense of vocation and professionalism over and above their normal work. Liberal Democrats believe the time is now to reciprocate that professionalism, not just by clapping once a week, but by offering them long-term security. Lord Mayor, our Lib Dem budget amendment puts the needs of older and disabled people, carers and families at the heart, boosting the esteem of the caring vocation and the role it plays as a valuable employer by putting an additional 200k into vocational development in 21-22
30 seconds.
Over and above the £4.2 million enhanced pay offered by the current administration. There's much more I can say, others have already said it, but above all, Lord Mayor, a plea to colleagues across the chamber, whether you support our Lib Dem amendment or not, let's applaud our carers.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Mary Lee, please.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. And I just want to say to Councillor Aries, what were you doing when you introduced austerity and we got into this position with social care? But anyway, I'm going to cut my speech down because 2 minutes isn't long. I just want to say that, you know, Sheffielders, as we all know, regard our our parks in high esteem, and we had the foresight in this Labour administration to put 2.4 billion of public health funding into our investment into our parks over the last few years and going forward. And that, in addition with all the other funding grants that come in, will deliver a really good quality parks for our people who really appreciate it. But it's not just about that investment. It's also in the last 12 months about what we've done in our parks to make them safe for people. And a lot of hard work and funding has gone into this to ensure that they are safe, from cleaning to extra staff, COVID marshals, ensuring toilets are well kept and people can use them in a COVID friendly way. And all the work that has gone into in particularly last summer, when people had a bit of a leeway, a bit of relief by being able to get out and enjoy our parks. But it's not just the parks, is it? It's about what we've done to our leisure centres. And now when their income was totally stopped, we put that funding in because we had to, and we enabled them to open last year. Again, essential for the people of this city. And when restrictions are lifted, we once again will open those leisure centres. And again, like Pete Price said, you know, that bloody old that mantra about the World Student Games. You know, that the World Student Games and those facilities in the southeast of the city, they enable that part of the city to be regenerated. And look what's there now. Your austerity measures made it that we had to close Don Valley a little bit earlier than we thought we might have had to. But look what's there now. It's risen up from the ashes. We've got 2 new schools, a world-class research facilities, sports facilities, a home for the Sheffield Eagles and more.
Councillor Lee.
Have we finished? Right. Okay, I was going to say something about the Greens, but never mind.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And also, thanks to the Labour Group for giving me a mention in their amendment about the finance officers and the great work that they do.
You're welcome.
I raised reserves in the Overview and Scrutiny Committee because it's a sign the council officers have got a prudent and robust reserves policy. In the Labour-run council, it's the must. That is, unless you are Leeds or Croydon, whose officers clearly didn't enforce a robust policy, which is why they're in financial trouble. Croydon being bankrupt and Leeds on the brink. Yes, our officers have protected the citizens of Sheffield through their reserves policy from any Labour largesse that could have threatened the finances of our city. Officers have doubled our reserves over the last 4 years, ensuring future risks are covered and debts accounted for. And I'm going to speak about one element of the debts, about Sheffield City Trust and 24 million still to pay off over the next 3 years. That doesn't include ongoing operational losses, which Sheffield City Council continues to underwrite on an ongoing basis, including facilities outside Sheffield, such as Scarborough and Whitby. All debts funded from reserves. Little wonder our officers' reserves policy needs to be robust. Can I finally commend the Liberal Democrats budget amendment to council? It points resources to the front line where it matters most, rather than, for example, taxpayer subsidies to trade unions. Surely council tax relief for foster carers is a worthy cause of political funding of trade unions. A simple example of how our revenue and capital budget amendment directs spending to where it's most needed. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Mark Jones, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and well done to Ruth for her maiden speech. And actually, well done to Councillor Turpin, who's not only talking to us from orbit, but seems to have an additional member to council. Good to hear. I found myself oddly agreeing with some of the stuff you were saying, Councillor Turpin. It might not happen again, but I'll get that in there. 140 million is committed in this budget to sustainability and to tackle the real crisis of climate change. This is a budget put forward by the Labour Group that I wholly endorse. And yes, though there's stuff in the other budgets that I may like and may feel appropriate, I think the Labour budget is on topic and is appropriate for the situation we've got. I'm really looking forward to seeing how we can actually build a just and fair transition and embrace the power of community wealth building as we look to come out of this COVID tragedy and rebuild Sheffield. We have lost colleagues within this chamber. and it saddens me to have to acknowledge that. We've lost people within our communities, but we must look now to the future to start to build back as we come out of this, and we must make sure that it delivers a Sheffield that is clean and safe for everybody, and that's what we're doing. With regards to the Lib Dem amendment, it's great to see the commitment to reduce to recycling from the Lib Dems, especially the recycling of Labour Council's ideas and work that is already being delivered. I really appreciate that you recognise the work that we're doing, and you're now trying to steal our clothes. Well done, lads. Keep it up. And I welcome the recognition that the Lord Scriven box, the little blue box with its hairnet, was not a good idea. And the hairnet's certainly not a good thing, whether it's a fashion statement or as a way of keeping waste inside bins. We saw that waste paper blowing all over the streets. It was a mistake. And as for having a Christmas sale, where the first 10% of people get the free bins, the blue bins, that doesn't sound like a particularly progressive or fair manner. That sounds like a charter for those with the pointy elbows. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Mohammed Maroof, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, can I congratulate Councillor Ruth Mazer for a maiden speech. Lord Mayor, may I congratulate my Liberal Democrat colleagues and in particular Councillor Simon Clement Jones for producing what can only be described as a fresh, energetic and enlightening budget, which has Sheffield at the heart of it. It is a caring, business-friendly and environmentally friendly budget, which addresses the issue of the day in a world that is going through a change through the pandemic. Lord Mayor, I think we recognise that communities are very important. If one thing the pandemic has actually taught us is how communities across our great city have come together, all communities, to help each other and support each other. The Lib Dem budget, and if you vote for the Lib Dem budget, puts communities at the heart of it. It will be reintroducing the very successful community assemblies as local area committees, which this administration could not wait to disband when they took control. We will give financial support to make them successful, empower them, and make decisions at a local level. Everybody's been talking today about local decision and local decision making being the right thing to do. We will put money there and make sure this does happen in every ward in this city. I am sure the present administration will agree this was one of their biggest blunders in hindsight, which they're trying to address. There's a lot of other things I wanted to talk about, but one thing in particular is page 255, paragraph 234 of Appendix 9. I think this is terribly important for everybody on the council. It's regarding the underrepresentation of disabled women, LGBT and the BAME communities within chief officer grades and senior grades within the council. I believe the officers should reflect the community as well. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Paul Wood, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think the big failing of the Lib Dem budget is it absolutely does not address equality and poverty. And you can't address inequality and poverty unless you deal with housing. And housing is sadly missing from all their proposals. It not only provides homes for young people getting on the ladder, it also creates jobs, employment, apprenticeships. It gets income back into the local economy through wages. And the Lib Dem proposal has to take 3.3 million out of the new homes bonus to balance their budget. And they don't address the housing issues of the city at all. It's a massive failure, and it makes the whole of the Lib Dem budget incoherent, really. I'd just like to say on community safety, we're very proud of what we're doing on that. 28 safer neighbourhood wardens to be employed. Most of those will be recruited from the local areas where they'll be working. Increased policing in all our areas that we're negotiating at the moment with those wardens. A new CCTV response to be able to put into target areas, which will have 24-hour monitoring through the central system in the town hall, and then increasing the safer neighbourhood officers as well. And all our safer neighbourhood teams will have enforcement officers within them. So I think this is probably the biggest input we've had into community safety in the last 10 years probably, and it's vastly needed. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Colin Ross, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's actually the bulk of the council budget spending is uncontested between all the major parties, but there are important differences in our proposals to change something like £4.4 million of revenue spending and £4.8 million of capital spending. And these reflect philosophical differences in the approach to how the council should be run. Specifically, devolving decisions and the return of community assemblies or community committees, whichever you want to call them, with real finance and hence real power. That will put decision-making over substantial chunks of money into the hands of local councillors who should know what is best for their own areas. And that means, as it was when the Liberal Democrat administration introduced community assemblies, giving power and money to Labour councillors in their areas as well. And that was exactly the right thing to do. I commend in the budget our efforts on local democracy and bins and recycling, which coincidentally came up in public questions today, because these are obviously issues that are important to people. And I also commend my colleague Councillor Smith's approach to business support, which is very enlightened, very forward-thinking, and will give the businesses in Sheffield the support they need. Councillor Fox mentioned the need to social care. Well, nationally, the Liberal Democrats are the only ones who are proposing a 1p rise in income tax, which would support adult social care as well as the NHS to give it the resources that are needed. So therefore, I commend the Liberal Democrat amendment to the budget, which will actually increase the involvement of local councils in their area and local communities in their area doing things which is sorely needed in this city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andy Bainbridge, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. First of all, I'd like to say we saw for 5 years what Lib Dems in power do for this country. They brought in austerity, and their current leader was a minister in that government. So I think the people of Sheffield will take that into consideration when it comes to May. On the opposite side of that, I'm so pleased with how well my Labour colleagues have kept the cuts they've had to make to a minimum and help the people within the city. We had to reduce some of our library numbers, and they became associate libraries. And Lib Dems, that's community in action. The communities are running those libraries. They are volunteers from that community. So, you know, we've put it into practice. It isn't a case of local councillors deciding how to spend money. It's people in the community doing the things for themselves. So I'm really pleased with how well we've done that. We've supported them. We've given them money year on year. They've had another £10,000 this year in the Jewel in my ward. Ecclesfield Library, which had £10,000 for new carpet, shelving and revamping children's provisions. And of course, we continue the support. And new computers have gone into all libraries, which includes the other library in my my ward, which is Chapeltown. We also do consult with local people. We consulted on Colley Park, which has now got lots of the public health money spent on it. Ecclesfield Park was consulted on, and that will happen soon. We've got the Cleaner, Greener, Safer happening in Sheffield, in Chapeltown at the moment as a pilot, and we piloted giving money to Chapeltown Centre. So I'm pleased to see that the Lib Dems at least followed us in that. So I commend the Labour budget. Thank you.
Thank you. I've just been reminded that Barbara Masters, I've crossed you off, but someone in here says you haven't spoken yet. Am I right or am I wrong?
Correct, Lord Mayor, I've not spoken.
Oh, right. Okay. I've crossed you off by mistake. Okay. You speak now, please.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wish to commend our budget amendments to the Chamber, in particular, our determination to implement actions that need to be taken now against climate change and to improve the natural environment, and for giving local communities a voice in this. People across the city are keen to play their part in tackling climate change and in protecting biodiversity. Allowing residents to rewild more of our verges lets them do that. It will enable wildflowers and the insects that depend on them to thrive. Our suburban banks can become a series of nature-friendly stepping stones across the city, splashes of colour along our bus routes. Community groups want a say in what is appropriate for their area. I have been pressing this administration to implement measures that allow this to happen for some time. There have been many fine words, but residents are frustrated by the lack of action. Therefore, I commend our policy for the environment, which includes a fully costed plan to allow rewilding across the city in response to climate change and to improve the natural environment. It is something we should all wholeheartedly support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor George Linders-Hammond, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well done, Councillor Mesereau, for your maiden speech. We all hoped that last year's budget would be the last time we had to deal with the Tory and Lib Dem desecration of local government finances over the last 11 years. And no one needs to remind us then of the tragedy of the last 12 months for Sheffield and nationally. But again, the government has failed to step up to support councils to the extent which really is needed, leaving us to protect the most vulnerable in the city. And well done to Terry Fox and our brilliant officers for this budget, which yet again, we managed to balance while investing in the future of Sheffield. This budget has a simple message. Times are hard, and we have a government who are clearly not on Sheffield's side, but we have a council who have steered Sheffield through the most difficult times in living memory, and we've got a plan for a fairer and stronger city going forward. Opposition councillors, rightly, have thanked our staff for their work, but then, yet again, they put forward amendments which seek to fund their priorities through full-blooded assaults on the paid jobs and terms and conditions of those who work for this council. Between them, the Greens and the Lib Dems want to tear out key employment rights, such as HR support and trade union representation, cut the pay of hundreds of staff, and make more staff redundant than the government cuts have sadly made necessary.
30 seconds.
If they get a sniff of power in the city, our opposition's priorities are clear. Not focusing all our resources on protecting people and businesses going forward, but going to war with our hard-working workforce. That's not the priority for Sheffield. We need a strong Labour government as Labour Council to continue this. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Penny Baker, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, can I start by congratulating Ruth on her maiden speech? It's really good to hear people speak for the first time. Thank you. Lord Mayor, communities of our city through this crisis have risen to extraordinary lengths. They've worked together as volunteers and within services that we couldn't have done without, from driving buses to being nurses, and we can do nothing but thank them for the work they've done, and also to listen to them and give them a bigger say in their community. So Lord Mayor, I fully support the return of community assemblies, as I love to say it, and the opportunity for people, for members of the public to speak and have their opinions heard. And what they've been saying in my community to me during this crisis is that some of the things have been made very difficult for them to achieve. They might not be using the cars so much, so that might be greening them up, but they're struggling very badly with recycling. So to increase the size of the blue bin enables them to recycle the cardboard that they're receiving from their parcels that they can't go to the shop and get. And to expand the plastics that recycle help also. and also for the people who are not able to go to the recycling centre, to allow them to have bring out the rubbish days so they can dispose of their larger items they need to dispose of. Lord Mayor, the recycling centres have been open, thankfully, right through this epidemic, but people have still found it necessary to dump their stuff in our beautiful rural areas. So hopefully expanding the opening times of those recycling centres will encourage them not to be such stupid people in the future. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I hope we will support the Lib Dem amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Downs, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Caught me unaware there. Sorry about that. And I too would like to congratulate Ruth on her maiden speech. It's a bit like going to the dentist, Ruth, isn't it, when you're standing up? I was reading through the Green Amendment, more of a wish list, but what really drew my attention was, I think it was point 48, a library of things. I thought it was a new programme on Channel 5 or something, you know, like Tales of the Unexpected. I don't think people would want to instigate it during a pandemic, but also after that, it becomes very problematic. All the electric apparatus and what have you, I'm sure it would have to be pat tested before it could be used. I'm sure it'd have to be pat tested every time it came back to make sure it was safe. And, you know, the admin to know what went out, where it went, when it's come back, is it checked? And I presume some of the more popular items or equipment might be very, very popular. And so there'd be a waiting list. So some people might have to wait, well, might have to book their cheese toaster 3 or 4 weeks in advance before they could get around to getting it. I mean, it's not a brilliant idea because when you look into it, this funding, how would it be funded? The librarians are going to do it. Well, I have a surgery in a library when we're allowed to, and the librarians seem quite busy to me. I mean, but we're expecting them to do something else. And we need to find some way of funding. We could follow the old library model and have a 2p fine if you're late bringing your toaster back. But I think it's very difficult. And I think before we even looked at this, we ought to make sure that the various groups like TARAs have talked about it, because when we had a tool bank, we used to give people, individual TARAs, not individual people, £5,000 to buy equipment for gardening, to encourage people to do their gardening.
Thank you.
Not because people didn't want to, but it's keeping track on the equipment, booking it in and out. It's a big item of work. So, you know, even if we for a deposit, I think that really defeats the object, because not everybody would be able to find a deposit. And I think there are better ways of trying to deal with this. You know, 10 out of 10 for trying, 1 out of 10 for looking at.
10 out of 10 for trying to get to frustrate me. Councillor Andrew Sangar, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The City of Sheffield will bounce back better from the awful trauma of the COVID pandemic. But we have to look to the future, and it's the Liberal Democrat budget amendment that looks to the future today. It's sad to hear Councillor Peter Price and Councillor Adam Hurst still live in the past. The Liberal Democrats will look to the future, and we look to the future in terms of climate change, in terms of real change in meeting the climate emergency, in terms of planting more trees, in terms of bringing back the electric bus, and as we had at the last council meeting, our commitment in terms of making sure that all council homes are carbon zero by 2030, a real plan. But it's also about looking to the future in terms of working with people, in terms of the environment, taking people with us. And that's the whole challenge about recycling. Why should Sheffield be 300th out of 345? And that's why we're saying today about bigger blue bins, and about reverse vending machines, and about time to investigate food waste collection. So there's a lot of things we need to help people, to take people with us on the environment. But I have to say, Lord Mayor, we've had 8 wasted years from Labour after they cancelled community assemblies. And whatever Councillor Terry Fox says about warm words about all 84 of us working hard, all 84 of us should be taking decisions. That's what community assemblies are about. It's about all of us taking decisions, working with our communities. So I welcome the idea that we're coming back, and it's the Liberal Democrat budget that puts real money in so that local councillors working with their local communities can make decisions in terms of improving the highways, improving parks, and working with them to make sure that Sheffield's a better place. The Liberal Democrat budget is a budget for the future and a budget for all of Sheffield. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Abdissam Mohammed, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just want to say congratulations to Councillor Ruth. Congratulations on your maiden speech. Want to say a big thanks to teachers, head teachers, support staff that have worked in schools over the last year in what has been a really, really difficult time for them. Our budget over the last year and the way we've run things as an administration has been flexible and really responsive. Where national government has failed to step in, we as a Labour administration have come forward, not only come forward, have actually been innovative in our responses. We have stepped in relation to free school meals, making sure that over 22,000 children and young people have meals provided during holidays where the government failed to address this issue. Where the government also fell short on devices, we as an authority, a Labour-run authority, were the first nationally to say that we were going to step in and provide over 6,000 laptops to ensure that children could learn at home virtually and weren't disadvantaged by their circumstances. And other local authorities, Lord Mayor, followed suit. All authorities in the Sheffield City region decided to do as Sheffield did, and in partnership with Laptop for Kids, partnered up to ensure that we could address the digital divide in schools and in local authorities. And going forward, our budget is just as flexible and is just as responsive to local need. The £2 million investment for children and young people into youth services will be community-led and will be based on local young people's needs, and we will do as much as we can to address well-being issues in local communities, taking into account everything that young people have endured in the pandemic. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Richard Shaw, please. Councillor Richard Shaw, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The Lib Dem budget amendment before us sets out our positive Liberal vision for Sheffield. Our budget would deliver a more successful, business-friendly city with a cleaner, greener environment, better health and social care, and a better council to serve the people of our city. Our budget includes many proposals and investments to help ordinary people in Sheffield. People such as a 70-year-old gentleman, Chancet Wood, who during the first lockdown last year told me that he's completely dependent on family to take him to the shops by car. He told me he'd love to get his independence back by getting an e-bike so he could go down the hill and shopping in Woodseats by himself again, but says the roads are too dangerous. People such as a Greenhill resident who drives half a mile each way twice a day from Greenhill Village to Meadowhead to care for her elderly parents, because it's too dangerous for her to cross the top of Greenhill Avenue and walk there instead. People such as a young mother who brought a petition to the council chamber more than a year ago for a new footpath so that she and other parents could walk their children to school without having to trudge with buggies for a muddy verge, and who was turned down by the now leader of the council. Our proposals include investing £2 million in district shopping centres, to commit to spend 20% of community infrastructure levy on improvements to active travel, an additional £200,000 of capital investment for cycling schemes, to devolve funding and decision-making to local areas, to trust councillors to represent and serve their communities and make a better, more responsive council. I urge councillors to back our budget and for Sheffielders to back our vision for this city by voting Lib Dem in May. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Mick Rooney.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll say what I've said for the last 4 years, I think it is, to the Greens and the Lib Dems. The workforce are not the enemy. Councillor Auckland said, vote Lib Dem. Now, that would be the party that spent 5 years in coalition with the Tories and Councillor Maroof. They then opened up 10 years worth of austerity And that's why the community assemblies disappeared, because we couldn't afford them anymore. And going back to devolution, I want to see if someone could answer the question as to how these budgets will be distributed. Will they be distributed on the basis of need, or will everybody get the same, regardless of whether it's a wealthy part of the city or a poor part of the city? Because last time you gave it the same to everyone, regardless of need. So you could clarify that. And what the final point is, I noticed that Councillor Mohammed said that he values the health of the people of this city. So would he like now to apologise for the fact that he and his party have continued delivering leaflets throughout this city when, under COVID rules, you were not allowed to do so, thereby endangering the lives of people that you now want to vote for you?
Report us to the police then, mate, and see what you get.
Councillor Alan Hooper.
Yeah, that's typical, isn't it? Smarty reply.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like to congratulate Ruth on a maiden speech, and I share her views about the provision of music to the young people and children in Sheffield. It's a serious issue that needs to be addressed. I wish to commend the Lib Dem budget amendment, in particular, local democracy, delivered by community assemblies or local area communities. The budget, Lib Dem budget, puts in £1 million. Lib Dems are the only party who are committed to give power back, to enable local people and local councillors have their say in real decision making. Decisions that affect their lives every day. COVID-19, unfortunately, has isolated people. It's made the council more remote for many people. I would support the Lib Dem amendment and vote for the Lib Dems in May to take a massive step to genuine local democracy. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor Sue Alston, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will be very brief. Lord Mayor, Liberal Democrats want to put more power and influence into the hands of local people by devolving significant funds from the council to the local councillors who know their areas and can engage easily and quickly with residents on the issues that matter most to them. But we also want to give support to all our community groups and those volunteers that have made such a huge difference across our city over the last 12 months in particular. I know we all want to give them a great deal of thanks and applause. So let's support them as the Liberal Democrats want to do. Let's help them when the weather's really bad so that they know who their local volunteers are going to be to help clear the snow. Let's help them run some community allotments to grow food. Let's help them rewild open spaces in their areas, and support groups who want to keep areas clean, rubbish and graffiti free. And yes, and Councillor Bainbridge in particular, we do want to help those great library volunteers who kept going over a number of years when our libraries needed them by giving them some extra professional assistance. So, Lord Mayor, with a combination of engaging more with people in Sheffield communities and those who really try so hard to contribute to them, the Liberal Democrat budget will be better for Sheffield and better for all Sheffield citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gail Smith, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Voting for this Liberal Democrat budget would mean that we would work with local companies that run care in this city to get their carers trained. I see firsthand, working in the community, just how important that is. And to be honest, over this last 12 months, these people have worked so hard, but we really need to reward them by working with the businesses they work for to train them better for the future. A Liberal Democrat budget would mean that local councillors have a say in their local area. Now, I'm so happy that the Labour Party have decided, after 10 years of abandoning community assemblies, that they now want to bring them back. Could that be a reason? Could that reason be because we're having a referendum? I don't know. Perhaps I'm cynical. But just a word to Councillor Rooney. Your accusations about delivering leaflets are unfounded, and the police were informed by your MP, and to be honest, they said there was nothing to be answered. I presume that the Labour Party will not be delivering any leaflets during this next election, but to be quite honest, that's not unusual because you don't usually do it anyway. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
We will be when the rules allow.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Councillor Shoned, Mayor Richards, please.
Right, sorry, getting to the unmute button. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and congratulations to Ruth on her maiden speech. I was also the parent of a child who I think learnt the French horn through the school's music system. I'm not sure how grateful I was about that, truthfully. I just wanted to comment on the proposals around devolving more power and money to the areas, because it's something I'm certainly very keen on. In Manor, we already have the Manor Action Group, which was set up by Councillor Terry Fox, which is a forum which brings all of our partners together to be held to account by councillors. It's something we've been doing for a long time, and there's no reason, I think, why other wards couldn't have been doing that if that was something that they felt so strongly about. One of the reasons I think we ought to look back at why we had to move from that previous system was about the previous government, which I think was a coalition of the Lib Dems and the Conservatives, who absolutely monstered local government, reduced our funding enormously, very swiftly, because they decided that it was local government that was at fault for the recession, not the global recession that we saw. And that's why we had to do something as a council to make sure that we were protecting other services. I think we've been looking at
30
it.
seconds.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. We've been looking to make sure that we can now do this safely in a way that we can devolve money, budgets, resources to members so that they can hold people to account in their areas, as well as be held to account by members of the public. I'm very much in support of that, and I reckon our scheme that we've put together will be one which will surprise and delight the opposition. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Roger Davison, please. Councillor Davison.
You're on mute, Roger.
Are you there? Are there, Councillor Davison?
Yeah.
Right.
Did you hear what I was saying?
Speech, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Rooney, wonderful speech. One thing I can say about Councillor Rooney is very balanced. He has a chip on both shoulders. Now, one of the things, it wasn't true about everybody, as you said, delivering leaflets, because I didn't, and many others didn't. A few did, but it wasn't against the law, as a matter of fact. But anyway, be that as it may, all these things about the budget they're ongoing debates. The debates about how you spend the money will continue over the year, and I think the community one is a very, very important one that we've got to get right, because here in Ecclesall we've been given scraps and we haven't been able to spend sensibly because there's been no money, there's been not enough money to put into worthwhile
subjects. So people, projects rather. And so people are getting very small sums. And I can tell you, we are the driving force in the North to get Sheffield moving. We are the ones that will drive Sheffield forward. We are the ones that will produce the kind of equality that one wants. And you go down to some of those areas that don't have the begging bowl like Sheffield. They're not unlike Sheffield. It's just that they have developed much more, and they haven't had a monopoly of Labour councils. I rest my case.
Thank you. Councillor Julie Grocott, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I just add my congratulations to Councillor Mazzaro on her maiden speech this afternoon. I think education, young people and looking after their future is extremely important. And I think it's probably worth noting one of the things that Councillor Peter Price missed off his list when he was talking about the regeneration of the Lower Don Valley was the National Centre for Child Health and Technology that is going on that site that will play a really important part in the health and future well-being of our children in the city. I think it's also worth talking about the budget, the great job that Terry Fox has done putting the Labour budget together this afternoon, and in particular the items that are on there about how we are going to look after the environment, protect this city and the health and well-being of everyone in it. There's a great programme going forward at this moment in terms of connecting Sheffield, which will make sure that we've got great cycleways, we've got great walkways, that the public transport routes are more direct so that we are cutting down on carbon emissions and making sure that our city is cleaner for everyone. It's a lot of work that is going on. Public transport, activity, health and well-being of local people across this city is key. And so far I've heard absolutely nothing from either of the opposition parties in relation to how they are going to deliver any of these. We have a scheme that is well in place, that has been well consulted on, and that we will continue to deliver across the rest of this year. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Josie Paschek, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I really wasn't going to speak, but it depresses me how every year we come across and we've got these amendments that attack the trade unions. And I'll declare a trade union background. I've been a trade union member for more years than a lot of people, the younger ones, have even been on this council. Trade unions do a job that most of the people sat in this council, if we were in a council, would want to do. They have to sit with them when they're sick. They have to sit with them when they've been negotiating redundancies. They have to sit with them when they can't perform because their families are sick. That they deal with people at the worst times of their working life, trying to get the best for them. And I think it's wrong that the trade unions are being attacked. I think after the work and the amenability of the staff over this year and the flexibility of our staff over this year to even discuss pay cuts, even if it's for the better paid ones, because they're the people that are doing all the organising and all the training and everything else that's been needed over this year, last year, to get everything done. And I think our budget covers everything that has always been important to us. We've always protected the vulnerable first and foremost. We've always, the environment is not there as a punchline for everything because it crosses everything that we do. It's in every proposal that's coming through this council and will come through this council, is that from measurements for improving clean air and the rest of it. It's again, and as for the digs about delivering leaflets, we will go out when it's safe to deliver leaflets, but when we're asked to do as little as possible out in the community because of the background and because of the price that people have had to pay, real prices that people have had to pay, no, we haven't done and people shouldn't do it. And as for just complaining about small bins, well, I remember when you were complaining about having to move from boxes to bins. So it seems that you can't make your mind up. I think people should just do that. And I think, you know, if you come to doing a budget next year, can you just please leave off attacking the workforce and leave off attacking the trade unions?
Thank you. Thank you. That's the last. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, there's Joe. Joe, sorry. Councillor Joe Otten.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor, for letting me in at the end there.
I wasn't going to speak, but after Councillor Rooney's comments, I thought I ought to correct the record. The Lib Dem funding of community assemblies did include an element for deprivation, so it's completely wrong to say it was the same amount everywhere. The thing is that some of the work of community assemblies was related to deprivation. It's quite rightly, therefore, had a funding element determined by the indices of multiple deprivation, and some of it was services for everybody, and that was quite rightly funded on an equal basis across the city. And when Labour came in, they said, before they abolished them altogether, they said, "Oh, let's not worry about the fact that some of the services for everybody. Let's make sure funding for services for everybody is spent in our favoured areas." And they did the same when SIL came along. Now, so the local portion of SIL was there to mitigate the effects of development in a local area. And the Labour administration said, "Oh, we don't care about that. We're actually going to bring a system that means it can't be spent in the local area and it has to be spent on the other side of the city." So the other thing that I'm slightly puzzled about, because we're now getting some kind of community assemblies back, if it's the case that they had to go in 2013 because we couldn't afford them because the council's funding had been cut so much, then are you saying that the council is now being funded better in 2021 than it was funded in 2013? Or actually, have you recognised it was a mistake to get rid of them and they make better decisions because they're local decisions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's the final question, unless anyone else has anything they really want to get off the chest, because we're only 5 minutes before the guillotine.
Chair.
That's very tempting, Lord Mayor.
Sorry?
Chair.
Councillor Clarkson. You're on mute, Councillor Clarkson. You're on mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to say very quickly, as an independent, I've thoroughly enjoyed the debate on everybody's speeches. I thought there's some of them we've heard before. Recycling has been recycled again. But the victims of all this are the pandemic, small businesses. Who would have thought that coffee shops would have helped people with mental health problems? So social care, it's great to see that every party's back in social care, because mental health issues is going to be the big issue after all this. I'm very surprised, though, being the only Brexiteer in the chamber out of 84 councillors, I'm the only Brexiteer in here. I know that some of you voted, and that'll be nameless. But buying British, you should have included buy British. Look at Morrison's. They've just bought a load of a fishing company, which is going to keep people in jobs. Buying British will keep local people in jobs. So please, and don't use, it shouldn't have been used today as a party political broadcast. Some of you have done that today. It's not a party political broadcast. This is about for the people of Sheffield. That's all I wanted to say, Lord Mayor, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to move to the vote on amendment number 1, moved by Councillor Terry Fox, which will be recorded via a roll call conducted by the Director of Legal and Governance. I shall pause for a few seconds to give members a short period of time to prepare for the vote. Please can I ask that all members unmute so as they be ready to reply upon hearing their name. To reduce noise interference and minimise disruption, please can you remain silent whilst the roll call is being conducted.
There's 2 Anne Murphys.
Yes,
Oh,
that's
it's 2
our
Anne
plan.
So good they named her twice.
Absolutely. What's wrong with 2 Anne Murphys? Roger.
Mayor, sorry. Are you ready? Are you ready? Yeah. Right. Okay. We're going to start with the roll call.
What are you voting on?
I'm going to go in there so that Lizzie can come in here and get tea ready.
because I've got to vote now.
Can you try and be quiet while the roll call? I know it's difficult. Thank you.
Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Gail Smith.
Against.
Simon Clement Jones.
Against.
Bob Pullen.
Against.
I can't hear anything.
I can't hear, Lord Mayor.
I can't.
Not here either.
I can't hear either, Lord Mayor.
No, it's very faint.
I can't hear anything.
I
As
can
long
hear
as the
you.
Lord
Tim.
Mayor can hear.
I'll mute, yeah.
Sure, and.
Try that. Hang on. Wait a minute.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
How far did we get to?
We've got an echo.
Pulling. Bob Pulling.
Bob Pullen. Okay, Richard
Against,
Shaw.
Lord Mayor.
Against.
Bob McCann.
Against.
Chris Rosalind Josephs.
For.
Sophie Wilson. Denise Fox.
For.
Brian Lodge.
For.
Karen McGowan. Angela Ardenzio.
Abstain.
Carlton Rivers.
Abstain.
Jackie Drayton.
For.
Talib Hussain.
For.
Mark Jones.
For.
Douglas Johnson.
Abstain.
Ruth Mercereau.
Abstain.
Martin Phipps.
Abstain.
Tim Huggan.
Against.
Mohammed Maroof.
Against.
Anne Murphy.
For.
Mazza Iqbal.
For.
Mary Lee.
For.
Zahira Naz.
For.
Joe Otten.
Against.
Colin Ross.
Against.
Martin Smith.
Against.
Andy Bainbridge.
For.
Vic Bowden.
Against.
Moy O'Rourke.
For.
Roger
Sorry.
Davison.
Yep. As in
Sorry.
Abanthe, against.
Did we get that? Yeah. Roger Davison.
Against.
Barbara Masters.
Against.
Shafak Mohammed.
Against.
Abdul Qayyum.
For.
Alan Law. Abtizan Mohammed.
For.
Sue Alston.
Against.
Andrew Sangar.
Against.
Cliff Woodcraft.
Against.
Lewis Dagnall.
For.
Kate MacDonald.
For.
Paul Turpin.
Abstain.
Ian Auckland.
Against.
Sue Auckland.
Against.
Steve Iris.
Against.
Bob Johnson.
For.
George Linders Hammond.
For.
Josie Pazchek.
For.
Terry Fox.
For.
Ed Meyer Richards.
For.
Kevin Oxley.
Against.
Peter Garbott.
Abstain.
Jim Steinke.
For.
Alison Teal.
Abstain.
Julie Daw.
For.
Ben Miskell.
For.
Jack Scott.
For.
Mike Drabble.
For.
Diane Hurst.
For.
Dawn Dale.
For.
Peter Price.
For.
Gary Weatherall.
For.
Mike Chaplin.
For.
Tony Dams.
For.
Jane Dunn.
For.
David Baker.
Against.
Penny Baker.
Against.
Vicky Priestley.
Against.
Jack Clarkson.
Abstain.
Julie Groscut.
For.
Francine Johnson.
For.
Ben Curran.
For.
Neil Gibson.
For.
Alan Hooper,
Against.
Adam Hurst,
For.
Mike Levery,
Against.
Mick Rooney,
For.
Jackie Stir,
For.
and Paul Wood.
For, and I've also had a text off Sophie Wilson, who's having trouble being heard. She's put a message in chat to vote for.
Sophie Wilson.
I'm here. Yeah, I've put the message in the Zoom chat. Please record me as for. Thanks, Paul.
We're just doing the thing now. Just counting up, guys.
Sorry, can I also double check that my vote for 4 was recorded? My unmute was being a bit dodgy.
Moira wrote, was she recorded? Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Right. So that was carried, and it was 44 for, 26 against, and 1 abstention. Oh, was that 9? Oh, sorry, 9 abstentions. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't read the writing. Okay. So that was carried. I'm now going to move to the vote on amendment number 2, moved by Councillor Simon Clement Jones, which will be recorded via a roll call. Please can I remind members to unmute so as to be ready to reply upon hearing the name, but otherwise do remain silent to reduce noise interference and minimize disruption while the roll call is being conducted. Okay. I've got to answer you, haven't I? I'm first. I'll go on mute after. Yeah.
The Lord Mayor, Councillor Tony Downing.
Against.
Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Gail Smith.
For.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, can now. Yes.
Okay. Simon Clement Jones.
For. For. Can you hear me? For.
It only counts once, Simon.
Okay.
Sorry, just try again. Is that okay? Can people hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you, but can you hear us?
That's fine.
Okay. Bob Pullin.
For.
Keep going.
We seem to have lost sound in the chamber.
Is that why you're outside, Jill, in front of the town hall?
Is it turning up? Is that what it is?
No, we can hear you, Gillian.
Perfect.
Well, I think it's a fair bet that the Lib Dems are going to vote for and the Labour group is going to vote against. What you need is what the Greens are going to do. And Jack.
Oh, that's it. That's it.
Can we just tell you, we're going to abstain.
Do you give
Okay, thank you, councillors.
Go on.
Thank you, councillors. We're okay now. I'll go back to Bob Pullin.
For.
Richard Shaw.
For.
Bob McCann.
For.
Chris Roslin Josephs.
Against.
Sophie Wilson.
Against.
Denise Fox.
Against.
Brian Lodge.
Against.
Karen McGowan.
Against.
Angela Orgenzio.
Abstain.
Carlton Rivers.
Abstain.
Jackie Drayton.
Against.
Talib Hussain.
Against.
Mark Jones.
Against.
Douglas Johnson.
Abstain.
Ruth Mercereau.
Abstain.
Martin Phipps,
Abstain.
Tim Huggan,
For.
Mohammed Maroof,
For.
Anne Murphy,
Against.
Mazza Iqbal,
Against.
Mary Lee,
Against.
Zahira Naz,
Against.
Joe Otten,
For.
Colin Ross,
For.
Martin Smith,
For.
Andy Bainbridge,
Against.
Vic Bowden,
For.
Moya O'Rourke,
Against.
Roger Davison, Barbara Masters,
For.
Shafat Mohammed,
For.
Abdul Qayyum,
Against.
Alan Law, Abtizan Mohammed,
Against.
Sue Alston,
For.
Andrew Sangar,
For.
Cliff Woodcraft,
For.
Lewis Stagnall,
Against.
Kate MacDonald,
Against.
Paul Turpin,
Abstain.
Ian Auckland,
For.
Sue Auckland,
For.
Steve Harris,
For.
Bob Johnson,
Against.
George Linders Hammond,
Against.
Josie Pazchek,
Against.
Terry Fox,
Against.
Sean Edmire Richards,
Against.
Kevin Oxley,
For.
Peter Garbett,
Abstain.
Jim Steinke,
Against.
Alison Teal,
Abstain.
Julie Daw,
Against.
Ben Miskell,
Against.
Jack Scott,
Against.
Mike Drabble,
Against.
Diane Hurst,
Against.
Dawn Dale,
Against.
Peter Price,
Against.
Gary Weatherall,
Against.
Mike Chaplin,
Against.
Tony Dams,
Against.
Jane Dunn,
Against.
David Baker,
He's
Penny
shouting
Baker.
for.
Sorry, did we get David Baker there?
He's shouting for.
Okay. Vicky Priestley,
Sorry.
Jack Clarkson, Julie Garocott,
Against.
Francine Johnson,
Against.
Ben Curran,
Against.
Neil Gibson,
Against.
Alan Hooper,
For.
Adam Hurst,
Against.
Mike Levery,
For.
Mick Rooney,
Against.
Jackie Satter,
Against.
and Paul Wood.
Against.
Can I just check? I don't think you recorded Roger's vote. Roger Davison.
Sorry, I've been informed that you couldn't hear me.
Yeah.
Right, like the golfer said, 4. Does he hit the ball?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a joke?
Okay, just a few seconds while I get it counted.
Sorry, Mick, you can't afford me otherwise.
I wouldn't hire
If the
you.
jokes were
Roger.
any good, you couldn't afford me.
Blessing.
I wouldn't hire you, Roger.
Oh, right. Right. So we've got on amendment number 2, 26 for, 44 against, and 8 abstentions. So that one is lost. Okay. That's that one. So now we're going to move to the vote on amendment number 3, moved by Councillor Douglas Johnson, which will again be recorded via the roll call. Over to you, Jane.
Thank you. The Lord Mayor, Councillor Tony Downing.
Ooh.
Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Gail Smith.
Against.
Simon Clement Jones.
Against.
Bob Pulling.
Against.
Richard Shaw.
Against.
Bob McCann.
Against.
Chris Roslin Josephs.
Against.
Sophie Wilson.
Against.
Denise Fox.
Against.
Brian Lodge.
Against.
Karen McGowan.
Against.
Angela Orgenzio.
For.
Carlton Rivers.
For.
Jackie Drayton.
Against.
Talib Hussain.
Against.
Mark Jones.
Against.
Douglas Johnson.
For.
Ruth Mercereau.
For.
Martin Phipps.
For.
Tim Huggan.
Against.
Mohammed Maroof.
Against.
Anne Murphy.
Against.
Mazza Iqbal.
Against.
Mary Lee.
Against.
Zahira Naz.
Against.
Joe Otten.
Against.
Colin Ross.
Against.
Martin Smith.
Against.
Andy Bainbridge.
Against.
Vic Bowden. Moya O'Rourke.
Against.
Roger Davison.
Against.
Barbara Masters.
Against.
Shafak Mohammed.
Against.
Abdul Qayyum.
Against.
Alan Law. Abtizan Mohammed. Sue Alston.
Against.
Andrew Sangar.
Against.
Cliff Woodcraft.
Against.
Louis Dagnall.
Against.
Kate MacDonald.
Against.
Paul Turpin.
For.
Ian Auckland.
Against.
Sue Auckland.
Against.
Steve Harris.
Against.
Bob Johnson.
Against.
George Linders Hammond.
Against.
Josie Paschek.
Against.
Terry Fox.
Against.
Sean Edmeyer Richards.
Against.
Kevin Oxley.
Against.
Peter Garbett.
For.
Jim Steinke.
Against.
Alison Teal.
For.
Julie Daw.
Against.
Ben Miskell.
Against.
Jack Scott.
Against.
Mike Drabble.
Against.
Diane Hurst.
Against.
Dawn Dale.
Against.
Peter Price.
Against.
Gary Weatherall.
Against.
Mike Chaplin.
Against.
Tony Dams.
Against.
Jane Dawn.
Against.
David Baker.
Against.
Penny Baker.
Against.
Vicky Priestley.
Against.
Jack Clarkson.
Abstain.
Julie Groscoat.
Against.
Francine Johnson.
Against.
Ben Curran.
Against.
Neil Gibson.
Against.
Alan Hooper.
Against.
Adam Hurst.
Against.
Mike Levery.
Against.
Mick Rooney.
Against.
Jackie Sutter.
Against.
And
Who
Paul.
won that one?
Against.
Oh, sorry.
Did you hear my reply? I'm not sure if I.
No.
No, Vic.
Yeah, against.
Thank you.
Oh, we can relax and watch Wednesday tonight.
Oh.
We're just
Whatever.
Not very relaxing, that.
Really suffering.
Shut up.
I don't think anyone's got anything to brag about
No,
football
I
in
am
Sheffield at the
15.
moment.
Pure pain.
Both
Emotional
team
pain.
needs
Can you hear me?
God's intervention, I think.
The amendment number 3 result is 8 for, 70 against, 1 abstention, So that amendment is lost. I'm now going to move to the vote on the substantive motion. Where are we? Here we are. Which will be recorded via the roll call. The substantive motion is the content of amendment number 1, moved by Councillor Terry Fox. Okay. Oh, just a minute. Yeah. You want this paper? Yeah.
Thank you. The Lord Mayor, Councillor Tony Downing.
For.
The Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Gail Smith.
Against.
Simon Clement Jones.
Against. Come on, the Villa.
Bob Pullen.
Against.
Richard Shaw.
Against.
Bob McCann.
Against.
Chris Roslin Josephs.
For.
Sophie Wilson.
For.
Denise Fox.
For.
Brian Lodge.
For.
Karen McGowan.
For.
Angela Argenzio.
Against.
Carlton Rivers.
Against.
Jackie Drayton.
For.
Talib Hussain.
For.
Mark Jones.
For.
Douglas Johnson.
For.
Ruth Mercereau.
Against.
Sorry, can I just clarify Douglas Johnson?
Well, I voted both ways, but I'll settle on against in the end.
Typical.
Sorry about that. It's been a long afternoon.
Against. Ruth Mercereau.
Against.
Martin Phipps.
Against.
Tim Huggan.
Against.
Mohammed Maroof.
Against.
Anne Murphy.
For.
Mazza Iqbal.
For.
Mary Lee.
For.
Zahira Naz.
For.
Joe Otten.
Against.
Colin Ross.
Against.
Martin Smith.
Against.
Andy Bainbridge.
For.
Vic Bowden.
Against.
Moya O'Rourke.
For.
Roger Davison.
Against.
Barbara Masters.
Against.
Shafat Mohammed.
Against.
Abdul Qayyum. Abdul Qayyum.
For. Sorry. For.
Okay, Alan Law. Abtizam Mohammed.
For.
Sue Alston.
Against.
Andrew Sangar.
Against.
Cliff Woodcraft.
Against.
Lewis Dagnall.
For.
Kate MacDonald.
For.
Paul Turpin.
Against.
Ian Auckland.
Against.
Sue Auckland.
Against.
Steve Harris.
Against.
Bob Johnson.
For.
George Lindis Hammond.
For.
Josie Paschek.
For.
Terry Fox.
For.
Sean Edmeyer Richards.
For.
Kevin Oxley.
Against.
Peter Garbett.
Against.
Jim Steinke.
For.
Alison Teal.
Against.
Julie Dorr.
For.
Ben Miskell.
For.
Jack Scott.
For.
Mike Drabble.
For.
Diane Hurst.
For.
Dawn Dale.
For.
Peter Price.
Is it illegal not to set a rate 40? Hold on, man.
Gary Weatherall.
For.
Mike Chaplin.
For.
Tony Dance.
For.
Jane Dunn.
For.
David Baker.
Against.
Penny Baker.
Against.
Vicky Priestley.
Against.
Jack Clarkson.
Abstain.
Julie Grocott.
For.
Francine Johnson.
For.
Ben Curran.
For.
Neil Gibson.
For.
Alan Hooper.
Against.
Adam Hurst.
For.
Mike Levery,
Against.
Mick Rooney,
For.
Jackie Sitter, and Paul Wood.
For.
I'm just counting up now.
44. 34.
Okay, this is the vote on the substantive motion. 44 for, 34 against, 1 abstention. That's carried. Thank you. We've just got one other item left now, item 6, which I had to get some paperwork for. Is it that as well? Yeah. What am I reading out? This one here. Oh, this. It is moved by Councillor Diane Hurst and seconded by Councillor Tony Dams that Councillor Tony Dams, that Councillor Sean Mayor Richards to replace Councillor Dawn Dale on Sheffield City Region Combined Authority and Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Jane Dunn to fill a vacancy on the Access Liaison Group, and Councillor Tony Dams to be appointed as a substitute member for Councillor Bob Johnson on the Yorkshire and Humber Reserve Forces and Cadets Association. Is that moved?
Formally moved, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Dams?
Formally seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. That concludes the business. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Just a minute. Just bear with us. Sorry. Just here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm going to move to the vote on the motion. Is the motion agreed? I will take silence as affirmation of the meeting. If any member wishes to dissent, please unmute and speak. I take that. That's okay then. Okay, and that, people, concludes the business for today. Thank you all for your attendance.
Well
done, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Lord Mayor.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
See you later. Bye.